Hello.
Hello.
And did you get my message on the agenda item?
I did.
Oh, okay, good. You could
That'll
probably
be great.
put her right, Sarah, right after Liz Goodrich's.
But that's exactly where I had her.
Okay.
Text me when you're done.
Oh, okay, I will. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I am on a hotspot to my phone. I have my iPad and we're in the middle of a campground out at the coast.
Okay.
Impressive.
We'll be looking for bears.
It works.
Yeah, we'll look for little woodland creatures in your window.
Yeah, it does look, it looks a little forested, huh?
Well, better than smoke out my window, right?
Oh, yeah, that's, I mean, we were going camping someplace else or actually Metolius, and we had a campground and it was bad there. So we just felt like we have to get out of the smoke. So that's what we did.
Yeah, no, it was funny this weekend. People were just like leaving and just driving until they hit no smoke. Like I had some friends that ended up in Maupin. You know, it's like for no reason. They just kept driving.
Well, we were wondering if we were going to get out because driving over here, we didn't get out of the smoke until past Eugene.
Oh, really? Well, they
Yeah.
said, I was watching the football game and they said it was smoky at the football game. It didn't look the way as bad as here, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm hooking up more stuff. So
You want this one?
no, I want it on. Yeah. There. Okay, have a good time.
All right.
I had no idea if all this would work. We do have Wi-Fi. I thought I was going to have to go to some coffee shop or something, but I can pick up a cell phone here. And so I just hooked it up to a hotspot on my phone and I was able to pull it in. I had no idea if I would be able to.
Well, my niece she's a teacher and was having to teach remotely last year. And so she ended up, they bought a travel trailer. And because her only child left at home was on remote school and she was on remote teaching. And so they tried it out and she taught remotely from the travel trailer and it worked fine.
Yeah, cool.
So,
Hi, everybody.
hey, Ray.
Hey, Ray.
Hey, Ann.
Hey, good morning.
There we go.
Okay.
A lot of no videos.
All right. Well, I think we are all here and it's noon. So shall we start?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to our September board meeting. We are back Zoom only, unfortunately, but I think that that was the smart call for the conditions right now. So we'll just kind of do it month by month, if that's okay with everybody, and just see how how the numbers are going, and kind of do our part to keep people safe. So did people have a chance to review the minutes?
Mhm.
And were there any additions or corrections?
Well, I had a question for Todd.
Yes.
Am I wrong? I thought we were going to add my the issues that I wrote out and add it to either, was it the July minutes and the August, and then you were going to put a link on the library website where we have our minutes, a link to the Zoom recordings. Those two items.
We're working on the Zoom recordings still. And then we've got your letter attached. Your comments attached, I believe.
Well, I didn't find it on the website. When I went to the library minutes,
Yes.
yeah, that's where I think it should show up, not just in the printed that we receive. So it becomes part of the public record. People can access whatever we've written and submitted.
But it wasn't part of the meeting.
I think at that meeting, we discussed the fact that we were going to do it online, and then you said that was fine, and that's where we left it.
Oh, so you're gonna add those. There'll be they will show up when people click on the minutes.
If they go to the recording, they'll get everything that was said in that meeting.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought we were also gonna put it in print because I wrote it out. Was it the same as we had for Paul Dewey's letter?
Well, that would be another issue for the board, because you're talking about something that if you didn't read it aloud during the meeting, it was never part of the meeting.
Right, and that's what the consensus of the board was during the discussion last month.
But I did read it.
No, you did
No,
not.
No, you did not read it. You talked about it, but you didn't read it.
No, this was at was it the July meeting, I believe? I said, I will read this because I want to make sure I have it.
Didn't.
You did not. There were parts of it that you read, and then other parts that were in that document were not the same as what you said.
Right, because
Because-
you said we've had enough discussion on it, let's move forward. I didn't get to read the rest of it.
Well,
Or
it
would you want
wasn't,
me to read it into the minutes for this meeting?
I think our discussion last month was that we wanted to reflect what happened in the meetings accurately, and that wasn't an accurate reflection of what was presented in the meeting. And I think the other portion of the conversation last month was that I think as a general rule to promote good board operations, that we don't resort to reading public statements. I mean, this isn't like reading things into the congressional record. We want to promote conversation among board members, not written statements as a general rule. And I think that you were given a lot of time during that meeting to make a statement, because I wanted to have you have the opportunity to express your views. But when you started to repeat points is at the point at which we stopped that. Because I don't think we want the meetings to degrade into just political pontificating. We want to have a discussion and we want to exchange ideas. We don't want to just have statements being read by each of us. For one thing, that doesn't allow response by other people. So, you know, if I disagree with what you say, do I come back at the next meeting and I read my statement? I mean, that just doesn't seem like good board operations to me.
I think
And
that's
we've
what-
never done it that way before.
I think that's what we call deliberating. And I don't.
What,
I take a
deliberating by
little
reading
offense.
statements to each other?
I read the statement because I didn't want to go ahead and repeat myself and go off track. That's why I started by saying I'm going to read this so that I can cover what I have to say. And I take a little offense by you labeling that as politicizing. I mean, that's a negative connotation. We try, if we have opinions and we have issues that we want to bring up, I don't think we should call this politicizing, even if it's on a highly topical issue. And the thing is, I feel like if we are going to be transparent to the public and to ourselves, if we cover something and it's read and submitted in writing, then we should have it in the minutes. Otherwise, we're going to keep coming back and saying, well, did we really say this? Did you really say that? And it's, you know, whoever takes the notes controls the minutes, which is why I did write it out and then send it to Todd and to all of you, actually. So I don't see why you're saying that this is not the way we want to operate. If we want to have our ideas freely expressed and reflected in the minutes, we ought to be doing it if we go to the trouble of actually writing them out. And saying, you know, it's taking too much time. If time is more important than taking the time to deliberate issues, then I think we need to discuss that.
Can I ask a question? I'm not sure I'm understanding. Isn't the written, what Ray wrote, isn't it attached at some place on the website or something?
That's my point, Cynthia. I agree with you. It should be on the website, so that even if somebody goes to the minutes on the web page, even if it's a link, they can click on it and see what's written. I would much prefer it was actually in the body of the minutes.
I don't see any.
The only way we received what I wrote was a printout to the 5 of us, and there's no way for the public to actually access it.
I don't see any problem with us putting it on the website. I mean, the thing is, Ray, during the meeting, yes, you handed us the printout. One of the things I realized when I went back after the meeting and read it, you did not read it. You only started reading a certain portion of it, and then you started talking. And so you did not read the whole thing in, but I have no problem if you feel like you need to have it attached to the website. I have no problem with that.
That'd be great. That's all I'm asking for.
How do other people feel? What's the pleasure of the board?
I was not at the meeting. Oh, sorry, Ann.
No, go ahead, Bonnie. Bonnie, go ahead.
I was not at that meeting. I don't have any problems like Cynthia with it being attached on the web. I do have a problem though, I think with, I know there's a lot of controversy going on, and if every member brought a 3-page, 4-page letter that they wanted to read at that meeting, our meetings are going to get very disjointed. So if we want to make comments, I think that's fine. But to come in with pages to read, every member, we have 5 members, that's taking up way too much time. So I think if it's limited to comments, we can all make our comments.
Right, and I think my primary point, I guess, is not that it's time consuming, that we shouldn't discuss issues. It's that how does conversation best occur? And I don't feel like written statements are the primary vehicle to promote good conversations. If you make 45 points in a written document, then where does that leave any response? I mean, we can maybe respond to 1 point or 2 points, or, you know, it doesn't promote a discussion of those ideas. It just promotes listening. And yes, we listen and we understand where you're coming from, but does that help move the business of the board forward, I guess is what I'm saying. Because there's just so much there that it doesn't really provide any opportunity for response or for discussion. So, Anne, I'm sorry, I kind of leaped in there.
Well, no, and I think, Ray, and correct me if I'm mistaken, I think you wrote this out, like you said, so that you would cover the points that you needed to. And you did start reading it, but then it did go into discussion. And I think your points were very helpful in kind of outlining your points for that discussion. And I can see going forward, as board members, I know I would be very comfortable with coming up with a short statement that outlines the points that I'd like to discuss. And I think it would be very helpful to have that included in either our minutes or somewhere so that those points are kind of outlined. We do have a great deal to discuss. And I think, you know, as we go along in this process, we do need to look at having time to talk about those issues in that discussion. And so, you know, in the structure of the board meeting, sometimes it feels a little awkward doing that, but I think we do need to, you know, make an effort to hear each other. And so I would be in favor of including Ray's comments and further comments attached to our minutes or somewhere where it's part of the discussion that was happening with the board.
Well, I don't have a problem with it being posted on the website. So,
Okay.
and is that satisfactory to you, Ray?
Well, that's all I was asking for.
Okay,
Got it.
okay.
But
So,
Anne, can I say something?
yes,
I think we should try to have discussions, as you said. I don't think for each of us to start putting together pages, as Bunny said, for us to read through, that is gonna bog us down. And so I think going forward, one of the things we as board members need to do is if we have important points that we want to discuss, that we try and minimize them so that we can actually have a conversation about the things that are important to us.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I agree, but you know, going forward, if there isn't, you know, an instance where similar to Ray's points, if that could be included on the website, I think that would be helpful.
I'm totally in
Right, and
favor of that.
by recording the meetings, I think that's gonna capture that conversation.
As well, you're right.
Yeah. You know,
So
and
Todd-
I think that's a really good way for people who are interested to see what the discussion was, for sure.
So Todd, you will take what I wrote, and if people go to our website, go to minutes, if they go back to, say, the July meeting
Yeah,
and click on that, it'll show up as part of the
Yes.
minutes there. They won't have to go to another separate link.
no, it'll just be at the back of the minutes.
Okay, that'd be excellent. And then you're still working on trying to give an annotation, I guess, or timescale for the Zoom meetings, the Zoom recordings, so people, if there's a discussion on a certain topic, they can click on a certain time and link directly to that time of the Zoom meeting without having to scroll through an hour and a half of everything.
Uh-huh.
That'd be great. I think that would really make it much more convenient for all of us, as well as the public, to understand what we've done and how we've responded to each other.
Right, I mean, I can see this being a real resource
Oh,
for
yeah.
the public and for everybody.
Yeah. I was very impressed. I think the city is already doing something like this. I was just on a meeting for Project Wildfire, which is a county board that I'm on. And the minutes for that meeting back to, boy, pre-pandemic times. Well, actually, starting the pandemic, were recorded on Zoom. And you can actually click on any topic, and it'll take you right to the Zoom recording. It's fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's it's one of those good things that's come out of the pandemic.
And I think it makes it a lot easier to do the minutes.
Right, yeah, and as I was saying last time, most Robert's Rules guides say that the minutes should be a record of the actions taken, and that the discussion, it should focus on the actions taken, not on the individual discussion items. So yeah, we want to make them clear to the public, but I think that the recording aspect really is a great tool for everybody.
Yeah, I think we said in our governance policy, we follow Robert's Rules of Order as much as possible.
Right,
But we've always had in the minutes pretty much the discussions that led up to the decision, not just the vote.
right, and I mean, I think you need to provide some context, but this actually gives people the ability to do a deep dive, so I think that's great.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. Thank you.
So regarding the current set of minutes for the August meeting, do people have any additions or corrections?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved for minutes to be approved.
Do I hear a second?
Second, I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Do we have any members of the public who would wish to comment during our public comment section of the meeting? I don't see any members of the public in our.
You know, I've always said before, and I think people think I was joking when I said the staff is the public.
Right, no,
If they have anything they want to say, they should realize, you know, they can make comments at this point.
sure. Any public comments? Okay. Thank you. All right, next up is our bond update from Greg.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Greg, before you get started, I just want you to know, I so appreciate your reports every single month. You put a lot of time and effort into these, and I always enjoy reading them, and I appreciate them.
Well, good. No, and it's good to hear the feedback, you know, to make sure that the information and how it's presented is, you know, beneficial and informative, right? Which is to kind of give you that high level summary. You know, August was a pretty busy month for us with the architect and the design phase. We got their contract finalized at the very beginning of the month and under design, and have been very busy all month in going through the initial design process, which is the programming and the facilities investigation, meeting with BPL and their staff, talk about what happens, what's the intent of each individual property and project, and going through that. So, which is that initial conceptual design phase. And so I think we've made really good progress this last month, and which is continuing. That design phase will go all the way through to the October board meeting, where you guys will see the final conceptual drawings. I know we've got some work sessions set up in the coming weeks here to meet with DPL staff, management, community activists or groups that are joining us to get their input as well as yourselves. So that's going to be exciting to see how that progresses through. So, from a design standpoint and even our general, I always had that little paragraph at the beginning of our working relationship is going. That's really important to me, to our team, but to the project. We're communicating well always. And I think that as we've engaged with the architect and their firms, that our communication is really enhanced. It's working well. We're working through with the Zoom meetings and presentations, but I think there's a lot of information that needs to get transmitted from DPL to our designers. And what I observe and what I watch is going very well, functioning very well. And that's a good process. Excuse me. On the master schedule, we did some updates this past month. We worked more with the architect again and really looking at how we were going to approach the branches, which is our work package 4. And that's Sisters, Lapine, Sun River, and East Bend. And with the way Miller, Hull, and Steele, our architects, really set up their scope of work between the two firms and how they integrated, we had ability to kind of reorganize our process and timeline for that, which I think allows us to move through the process on the branches a little quicker, get to them a little sooner, but also have our construction activities tighter to when we complete our design and permitting. We had them stretched out quite a bit in our initial schedule. And so I think this makes it more efficient, more effective in our plan check to construction phase. So we're always looking at that, and I'm sure that we may have future adjustments to it because we want to work through with staff and really understand, hey, how much can we do at one time? Are we overloading anything or not? So we'll work through that schedule with them and continue to evaluate that. But that was the main update on the master development schedule, as well as the summary schedule attached there with the board report, was how we're approaching the branches. Downtown Bend, we really looked at that because it goes at the end of Central. We had the design going real early and the architect really wanted to get it much closer to the construction. It balances out workload, lets them put more attention to the branches early on before jumping into downtown, which made a lot of sense to us as well. So those are the changes to the schedule. Otherwise, the overall schedule, we're tracking on target to it, moving through that process. So we're still comfortable that we're on target schedule-wise. Time, of course, is always very critical. On the budget, there really was no significant changes. We've uploaded into our system the commitments with the architect, which with that commitment, we really meet a milestone relative to the bond, where we had to have 5% committed within the first 6 months. And so we've exceeded that amount already. So we're within that guideline or requirement. And so that was a good thing. But otherwise, there's been no adjustments or, excuse me, changes to the budget relative to the individual pricing at this point. So as we go through the conceptual design phase, one of the things we'll be doing is updating our construction cost budgets and our FF&E budgets based on this initial design. And that way we can bring them up current to the current market conditions, current escalations, and current design. And so that'll come up, and potentially we may see some realignment within the budget based on how those numbers come in. And we'll make any adjustments and share that with all of you, as well as with Todd and his staff.
On the procurement side, like I said, architect contract all complete and that's done. They've got all of their sub-consultants under contracts and released and engaged. So have them all on board early is always a good thing to start getting them thinking about the project. That's like structural, MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineers, etc. Probably the most activity we had was with our CMGC. And we issued the 2 work packages, work package 1, which is Central Library, and work package 2, which is Redmond Library. And we had pre-meetings with them in early August, as I mentioned at the last meeting. And then we had a mandatory meeting with them in late August on the 25th. And both of them were well attended. We have a lot of good interest from our local contractors as well as contractors in the region out of the state, more from the Valley and from Portland, but a number of firms from over there have expressed interest. We even had a firm down in Klamath Falls express interest. So we are getting good attention, which is always good. You know, you like to see that interest and competition out there. And we actually are receiving the proposals as we speak. They're due at 2 o'clock today. And so after I here today, I'm going to be headed over to start opening them up, and we'll be doing our evaluation process the rest of this month. And in preparation to submit to all of you for the October meeting, you know, the results of our evaluation and who the top respondents are for each of the 2 different work packages. So we're very excited about that. We'll keep you updated as we go through that. A couple of the other items that were on the procurement side, we did award contracts for the geotech engineer that went through a smaller RFP. It was wanted because it was under $100,000. It was had, you know, followed the certain rules within the public contracting rules. And those geotechnical engineer was hired under contract and is actually doing the site investigations now at Central Library and at Red Library to develop their geotech reports, which the design team will use as their basis of design criteria. So that's going along good. The cost estimator, so we have a independent third-party cost estimator, and that RFP was also issued in August, and those proposals come in this coming Friday. And so we'll be evaluating them and also presenting those to you in October. And they will engage right away with us to update the construction cost estimate for all of the buildings immediately based on the current conceptual or the conceptual design plans that will be issued at the end of the month of September and reviewed with you in October. So we have good interest on that. We know for sure 4 local firms here in Oregon that do this regularly have all expressed their interest. They're all working on it, asking questions. So we're pretty excited about that. We got 4 really good cost estimating firms competing for that work. And so expecting that to be pretty exciting to get them on board and start helping us really refine our construction cost estimates. You know, I mentioned on the cost estimates, the architect, part of their role is to work with us on our FF&E budget. And FF&E is the furniture, fixtures, and equipment. So it's the things that we won't buy through the general contractor or CMGC, but we will actually go out and purchase direct through a purchasing manager. And, but it's all designed by our design team, and they work with us to develop a budget. And so we'll be updating those budgets as well concurrently with our construction cost estimate. Those are 2 of the biggest cost estimates. Yeah, Ann.
Greg, When you talk about equipment under FF&E, how's that split out? Like what kinds of equipment are you talking about? I assume you're not talking about like air handling systems and HVAC and things like that. So what does that equipment under FF&E involve?
It's generally smaller types of equipment. So computer systems would be there, telephone systems. Some of these could be lease options or purchase options. It is the equipment that's like not attached to the building permanently,
Okay.
but can be movable. And so the majority of it is in those two categories of communications and computers. And
Okay.
then, the large bulk is going to be in the furniture, accessories, artwork, those types of things that are in those budgets.
Like where would materials handling automation fall under that?
It will fall underneath the CMGC. We will
Okay.
have a selected vendor that we're working on right now. There's a current vendor that works with the district and provides a number of systems relative to the material handling that has been providing services and is intending to continue with that vendor. So we'll go through, just like we did the exemption process for the CMGC. There's a process that we're working with legal counsel right now on developing the exemption paperwork for that selection. It's a sole source selection based on existing activity, you know, that they're already a vendor for the district.
Right.
And the new system will tie into the existing. So we'll have that selection process, but we'll actually have their purchase contract underneath the CMGC.
Okay.
They manage its installation because it'll go in during construction.
Mhm.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to clarify in my mind what went where.
Exactly. Cynthia.
Yes, could you just briefly, I'm probably the only person on the board who doesn't understand this, but could you just briefly describe what the geotechnical engineering, what they do, and also the role of the cost estimator?
Yeah, absolutely. So the geotechnical engineer is also referred to as a soils engineer. And so what they do is they'll go out and they do two things. They drill soil borings, which go down as deep as 80 feet into the ground. And they take out core samples of the dirt and the rock. And then they dig excavations, trenches, which can be like 10 feet deep, et cetera. And their specialty is in evaluating the soil conditions and the earthwork of a property. And then they write what's called a geotechnical report. And that report gives to the structural engineer and to the civil engineer design criteria that they need to design the building and the pavements to in order to address the strength of the soils, its characteristics of, is it a type of soil that drains freely or doesn't drain freely, if it heaves or not heaves. So it creates that guideline for our designers to help them do that part. The other part it does is also gives a grading specification that will then be utilized by the CMGC and the earthwork subcontractor to actually grade and prep the site. How we'll deal with rock to the extent we always have rock here in Central.
Yes.
We'll
Yes,
have to
we
deal
do.
lots of it. And so that's what it's used for. They will continue during construction where they actually have to do site observations. And they will actually be out there watching the graders work away. They'll check as we build the pad that the building sits on. And that's kind of the graded earthwork pad. They review it, test it, and approve it and then certify it as it's ready for the building to be built on top of. So they'll be involved with us all the way through the course of construction. Very key firm. So
And then also the cost estimator.
Yeah, so we wanted to have an independent cost estimator. There was one utilized in the very initial phase to create the bond who developed the cost estimates. And they worked for the architect at that time, G4 and Henneberry Eddy. We did not want to leave it under the architect's role. We wanted to have them working directly for ownership so that we had a little bit more of an independent view of it. They will produce cost estimates for us in concurrence with our CMGC as we go through. And they will do all of the buildings where the CMGCs may be only doing one building because of the 4 different work packages. So what they do is they do a detailed cost estimate that we can look at and compare against what the CMGC is telling us. So we kind of have 2 different answers there. And then we do a reconciliation between both firms. If one's real high on one cost and the other one's not, it's like, why aren't we seeing these similar or the same? So it helps to checks and balances against the CMGC. They work through the design development phase and to the 50% CD budget. At that point, we cut them. We don't have them continue beyond that, and because the next costing will be the CMGC setting their GMP, and at that point, we're going to work strictly with them. But they become just a third-party independent evaluator, and with being so important, having some extra opinions on it is really good. And these firms all work predominantly in our type of market, public facilities, campus type facilities, large public buildings, bond programs, and they're very familiar with our process, prevailing wages, and that kind of thing. So.
Great, thank you so much.
Do we have a local firm that's shown interest? Local meaning Central Oregon?
So of the 4 firms, 2 of them actually have somewhat offices here. One has an office. One I know has a couple people who live here and work here. The others are, one's located in Eugene. 2 are in Portland. Actually, 3 are in Portland. One of them that's in Portland is also a national firm. So of the 4 that I know of, and we could get more proposals based on others who choose to submit. But 3 of them are really Oregon-based and Oregon-focused. They probably do some work in Washington, especially state of Washington. And then we have one national firm that has a Portland office, and all of them very well qualified. We do ask as part of our criteria that they share with us their knowledge and experience of Central Oregon, because our environment in our building practices, in our subcontractor base, in our cost market is all very different than the valley.
Yep.
Going over the mountains, there's a real difference between that. And so, that's something we felt was important as we evaluate them and their abilities, that they understand our market.
So you're saying some of the 4 have staff that's actually living over here.
Yes.
They're situated here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know
at least
like
2
you
of the
say,
firms. At least 2 of the firms I know have staff, because they've shared that, they.
Oh yeah.
Following the project and up early on, sharing their information with us.
So is that going to be a weighted factor then?
It does have a weighting. Yes, it's 5% of the evaluation criteria is their Central Oregon experience and ability. So, there's a number of weights in there. But that definitely has one
Yeah.
kind of itself. I think, realistically that these guys, they have to estimate projects all over the Pacific Northwest and all over the state. But we really did want to make sure that who we select has worked here, done projects here, and we would expect to see things, from the local school districts, the colleges, university, and the government agencies, whether it's the counties or cities, that these firms are going to show up on their references and their resume. We ask for information on who done projects for, and that's, they work for a lot of groups of that nature. And I would think that of the 4 that I know of, all of them will have some local experience as well as a lot of state experience here.
And they'll be waiting for their most recent projects in this area.
Yeah.
As opposed to we have experience from 5 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's generally, we look at a 5-year time period because projects, take anywhere from, like you take our project, it's an overall almost 4-year timeline of doing the project. So projects, you have to go back far enough because they have a long life in them, and projects that they will have been working on. But we try to look at the last 5-year period to see that it's relevant, what they've been working on, as far as the type of facilities. And we do have a high confidence level that they've got a lot of really good experience, current active experience in our product type, public facilities in a bond program.
Yeah, I think it's critical. It's nice that we have that. It's good that you've done this. Not all government projects will have a independent cost estimator.
Right.
The architect will come in and say, trust me.
Exactly.
But then we get to this, the GMP, and we go like, whoa, what is this really based on?
Yeah.
So this is very good. It's an excellent, I commend you for doing that. It really gives us an added measure of financial accountability and knowing where we're going.
Yes, it does. And it gives us good comfort because we're always checking each design phase with the CMGC as our independent cost estimators. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a complex, big project with a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
So many moving parts. It'll be interesting how the estimator comes through with something. If they've ever had a project like this, how close were they to the actual end figure?
Exactly. Yeah. We do ask them to provide that information where it's available. How the estimate compared to the GMP price. Sometimes they disclose it, sometimes they can't, but it's one of those little things that we look at, most certainly. One of the other consultants that we're going to be bringing on board here, and you'll start to see it either in October or November, will be our commissioning agent. And the commissioning agent evaluates all of our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire sprinkler systems to verify that they are constructed and functioning properly to meet the design requirements. It's a building code requirement, and it's real good practices, right? You want to make sure that the thing, especially mechanical systems, are operating at the proper efficiency and to the design to be as effective as possible. But what we found is that they're also a really good third-party reviewer of our design as we go through the design process, because they look at it, and most of them are mechanical engineers by trade and understand it. And so as part of our scope of services that we will have with them will be to review each design progression, to look at, what questions might they have, because they're a very technical reviewer, and they'll look at, the energy models that the mechanical engineer develops. They'll look at the selection of equipment and systems and control systems, and they'll give us a again, a third-party review of that process. And part of it is they want to really understand what's being designed to write the commissioning spec. They write it for us and for the architect to tell the contractors, here's how we're going to test it, and here's what you have to achieve and meet. So that's another one of those really important consultants that will be on as an owner's consultant that advises us, but also has a very functional testing to meet code requirements and make sure that the finished product that we hand over to DPL and their staff is ready to be utilized and is there for the expected duration and performance. So, that's one that we're working on right now in writing up the RFP and developing the contract, and we'll be going out. It's a more of a selection procedure where we will select them based on qualifications, not on price. And we'll have established labor rates with them. And then with each individual project will be similar but slightly different in their responsibilities and roles. And we'll write individual task orders for them and negotiate those prices based on their rates. And it's a process that's utilized, a selection process. It's similar to how we did the architect, but we incorporated the final round was to incorporate fees in there. Here we're incorporating all their labor rates that we'll use. So again, we'll see more of that in the next couple months.
So that firm will also be working closely with the city and counties to make sure that what we have is getting the proper permits and all of the permits.
It's not the permits, but actually the testing
The
results.
requirements for that.
Yeah. In order to get our final inspection sign up and to get occupancy, we have to turn in their testing report and all their criteria. And they'll do inspections throughout the course of construction. They do periodic inspections where they're looking at how it's being built, making sure that it's accessible, equipment to get in and get at it, and that it's being built per plan. So they look at it so that they can write a report at the end that says it's built per plan, it's functioning and running, and it's running and functioning per plan at the optimal settings. And it really is driven a lot around energy usage and efficiency. So make sure that our systems are, as efficient as possible and minimize energy use.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Greg, on the, since we're talking about the cost estimator, on the project schedule, you have boxes with a little dollar signs in them. And I know we put money into this system each month, but are these like major draws for certain things?
No, those are actually when we will do major cost estimate updates. So as we go through each design phase, they kind of follow at the end of concept, end of schematic. And that's just identifying when we're going to do these cost budget updates. And that's where if we are seeing anything happening, costs are escalating higher than what we thought.
Right.
Cost estimates are up. And at that point, then we can say, okay, hey, we're over budget here and it's in these trades. And we can go back to the architect and say, okay, look, you need to look at your design because it's costing more money than we have. And they'll then look at, hey, what options do they have maybe to modify the design, change a product or a material? It's also why we engage with the CMGC, because they're going to bring us their ideas to address any cost issues. The cost estimators will to a certain degree, but I find CMGCs, along with their subcontractors, will give us a lot more feedback. You'll hear the term value engineering. And it's a term that's used in the industry to talk about options for design and materials that ideally is delivering the same level of quality and product, but in a different fashion or with a different product. And there's ways to reduce cost. Sometimes it may be a slight reduction in quality or something, but maybe it's acceptable to the architect. We'll do that process each time we do one of those budgets. It's where we kind of take our temperature, figure out what adjustments we need to do as we move into the next design phase.
Okay, good.
Thanks for asking that, Bunny. I just made an assumption.
No, these are all good questions because it helps keep you guys informed and
Right.
know
right.
what's going on. And sometimes I don't know everything that you would like to know. So please fire them out.
Well, you're great about answering them, so thank you.
Well, good. You know, we had talked about the insurance and we worked through with the broker, Brown & Brown, who's DPL's insurance broker, and with legal counsel, and really got our language in our program for insurance all locked in and is part of the CMGC proposal. And it's, to me, a really key component of risk management and how we handle that and how we're going to handle insurance through the life. And we have the ability to buy a district-wide, a bond-wide, I should say, program, insurance program for our construction and for all of our general liability, which offers the district a very large, broad coverage. And it really helps to bridge the gaps when you have a small contractor who really can't provide very much insurance because they're just a small guy. They sign into our program. And so everybody gets full coverage. It's a benefit to our contractors as well as the real benefactor is the district. And it's something that Brown & Brown really recommended and we went through. And so very happy that we got that all in place in the RFP and the contracts as we go forward. And so.
What was that called again? What?
It's called a DSIP. It's a district controlled insurance program. And it's for all of the liability insurance. We also reconciled what we'd be doing for our builder's risk program, which is the insurance policies we'll put on each property while it's under construction to cover all of the construction exposures. And then it also outlines exactly what each contractor and subcontractor has to maintain of their own insurance. Our DSIP will include a pollution rider for anything. And pollution is a word that's kind of has a very broad coverage of anything you could do to impact the environment, you know, through the course of construction. Again, small contractors buy very big policies. We can buy a big policy that covers everybody at a very effective rate. So
it allows more of the smaller contractors to be part of the program?
Absolutely.
Cool.
100%.
That's great.
Yeah. It does. It really lets them get involved because sometimes the limits are set so high otherwise that they can't get involved because they can't provide the insurance coverage. And so this takes that stumbling block away from the small guys.
That's great.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And like I said, it's also a real good level of coverage for the district. You know, I think the other items, kind of talked a little bit about the design phase already is moving right along. Our entitlements on Central Library is moving right along. We've been really working a lot with the design team this past month here with them on board and really refining how we're going to, the building is going to function on the site at Central Library and what our requirements are for the building and how that goes and how that just not really impacted, but how we present our application in to make sure that we're given the city the most information about our intentions and plans for the project and how we're going to utilize the land, so that it's just really good information. So that's being wrapped up right now and will be going in here in this coming week and getting submitted. So we're real excited about that. That's tracking to our schedule. We have ample time with that. And so we've got all of that worked out. We have worked out even with Jason Neighbor on, the triangle piece of the land to do what's called a property line adjustment. It kind of squares up and makes both of our properties more valuable and more usable, because it takes away that little pointy piece and gives us a square property line. And so they were very happy with that, and we were very happy with that. That makes it, in the end, just you can utilize all of the land efficiently for both of us. So, and that'll go in as part of this process and get in there. The ODOT process is, moving right along. We got the final agreement done with the management team of ODOT, gave them our blessings of the agreement. They have to circulate it through the Department of Justice. All of their documents have to go through a review with them. So they're expecting to have that completed this month here in September, so that you guys will see the ODOT agreement at the October board meeting for approval. And that agreement is for them to acquire the right-of-way land, and then and how we go through that. And so that's all set up and coordinated with our designs. We're really happy that their schedule is really aligning with our schedule, so that as we design Roble Street and where we will connect to the roundabout, they will have our information in time to incorporate that into their design build contract with their contractor. So that way they design our connection right up front. They were concerned we couldn't get them the information in time. And so between their schedule and our schedule, we met with them again and showed them where we are at. And they were very comfortable to say, if you meet this, we can incorporate it, which is really good, because then when we finalize costs with ODOT, which will be next June, for our mitigation measures and our share of that cost of the roundabout, we'll have all of that incorporated one time. So that way they shouldn't have to ever go, they should never be coming back to us asking for more money, because it'll all be known up front. And they will get it into their bid price with their design build contractor up front. So we'll get the advantage of competitive bidding. So, I think that's kind of it. Not a lot happening with Redmond at the moment. Really our next phase will be after conceptual design. We'll meet with the different groups, the Historical Commission and Durack again. I've had conversations with them about what we're doing and where we're going with the project. And so told them that after we get through our review with you, that we would then schedule time to review our project with them. And the design team is already engaging with all of the cities in the county as they need to at this early stage. But, with Steel Architects on board, they know all of the local plan checkers and plan reviewers. And so that's been really good. They've been good at able to, start getting their relationships set and discussing the projects and getting some early information out for us. I think I've kind of hit on all of my hot topics, unless there's questions. Ray?
Remind me again, Greg, which one of these boxes represents the charrette process?
It's really at the end of conceptual, end of schematic. It happens during those boxes. So where you see conceptual and then SD and DD. The last part of that, so like for conceptual, we're doing those reviews. starting next week, actually starting as early as this Friday with one group, and then in through next week, where we'll be doing them. We didn't break the individual reviews out here because in this case, like with conceptual, there's probably about 4 of them that are going to happen with different groups to really focus in. You know, I think this Friday we're meeting with staff, the broad staff group, and then next week we'll be meeting with yourselves. We'll be meeting with our community group, advisory group, and I think Chantal's got a whole number of individuals who have agreed to be our community advisory group that encompasses, I think, every city and all kinds of them. So I know she can share a little bit more about that, but that's going to be exciting because we'll get a lot of different viewpoints there from our community members. Then there'll be more community outreach as we need to get out to the users, you know, and we're working with the architect on doing that. We're going to really, because of the impacts of COVID and the use of video, they're actually going to develop video that where they present the designs and the concepts and the ideas. And then we'll be posting those online on the DPL website so that anybody throughout the community could go on site, look at it, and then be able to ask their comments. I've actually already gotten comments because I'm on the contact on our DPL website for the project, where when they send an email, I'll get it. And so one guy, he already told me he'd like to see drive-ups if possible and book lockers. So it's working. You know, the people out there in the community are starting to share their thoughts with us. And but we have a, I would say, very robust plan as we move through, and that'll go on for the next, you know, really 6 months to a year because of the phasing of the project for the different packages as we move through different phases. Once we get to construction documents, which are CDs, at that point, design is pretty much figured out, and now it's about preparing the technical documents for construction.
Right. So basically the SD and DD phases
Yes.
are the
And
ones that are
concept.
going to have public input. And that's interesting. I wonder if Todd, you can give us a, we'll get Chantal to do a printout of who's on the community committee. If you have that already.
Yeah,
Interesting
we
to
have a
know
list of
who it's going to
everybody we've
be.
invited.
Hmm?
I said we have a list of everybody we've invited.
I'd like to see that too.
Okay, be happy
Yeah.
to send that out.
Any other questions? If not,
Thank you, Greg.
Yes, thank
absolutely.
you. Good job.
Yeah, thank you so
That's
much,
great.
Greg. That was a lot of information, and it's really good to see all these layers of checks and double checks. And as Ray says, it's a big project, and it's got a lot of parts to it, and to be able to have that assurance as we move through that we're not getting way off in one area, because we want to have enough money to do everything that we've proposed. So
Yep.
yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much
Excellent.
for answering all our questions too.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to stay online here for a little bit, but at 2 o'clock, I got to run down and start checking in our proposals. So
All right, that's exciting.
Exciting.
That's super.
absolutely.
Have
All
fun.
right.
Have a
Okay.
good day, everyone.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Greg.
Greg.
Bye.
So now we're moving into our education portion of our meeting, and Liz Goodrich is going to give us some information about adult programming. So this is also going to be exciting, I am sure.
I hope.
Okay, and Liz,
um,
let me know if you are having trouble sharing your screen. I'll have to do something different.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So good afternoon, board and Director Dunkelberg. My name is Liz Goodrich, and I'm the Adult Programs Supervisor. Before I get started, I do want to acknowledge the work that you do and how important it is as a lover of libraries and believing that they are truly transformative institutions. I want you to know how much I appreciate your work. And after listening to Greg's update about the bond and the buildings, I couldn't be more excited about the direction that the library is going, especially when it comes to programming. And I'll get to that. What I thought I would do is tell a little bit of a story about programming, kind of bring you up to speed where we were, where we are, where we might be going. I've got 2 slides to share with you with some data and just a little bit of housekeeping, how we go about doing business in the programming department. And then I'll open up to questions. So I think I've got 15 minutes. I'm a fast talker. So if you need me to slow down, just like slow down and I'll answer questions at the end. Does that sound okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Take your time.
So-
Laura.
What was that, Ray?
Take your time.
Okay, I'll take my time. So I have been doing programming at Deschutes Public Library for 19 years. It's a long time. And Chantal often reminds me that in my interview, I actually said I didn't think I would be at this job longer than 2 years or 3 years. And here I am 19 years later, and I couldn't love a job more. So I've been through changes and tweaks and adjustments as we've moved through time. Technology changes, our buildings have changed, and our programming team has changed. And we've always really had a lot of pride in the fact that we are have always been a nimble team, adjusted to change that we didn't see coming, in a way that still brought robust programs to our communities. And in spite of all that on-the-job training of being flexible and nimble, none of that prepared us for what COVID brought to our door. So I want to tell you a little bit about that experience of moving from the way we did do our work into the way that we did our work. So in the fall of 2019, we just hired our 3rd programmer, and we were set to really increase and enhance our program numbers. We had just gotten Laurel trained, and going into the spring, getting ready to launch the 18th annual Novel Idea Project, and then COVID happened. And we had about 3 days of an existential crisis, like what will this mean for us? And then Chantal and I had a conversation and really recognized the opportunity that was put before us in the shape of a global pandemic. What could we do to meet the needs of our community regarding programming? So we decided to give it a shot. Like, can we move everything that we have been doing in person online in a matter of days? It was an amazing thing to watch. It was amazing to watch the teamwork that took place, not only within the programmers, but what we needed support from other departments as well. For the first 2 weeks, we were using our own equipment at home, our own desktops or laptops that were clunky and old and connection problems. So IT stepped up, got us all outfitted with new laptops and ability to log on from home to do our work, which was a critical component. We learned quickly about Zoom. Back in the day when Zoom was a novelty, what is this Zoom thing? We learned in real time. People watched us learn, and that's a pretty vulnerable place to have people watch us make mistakes. We made a lot. I wish we had kept like a blooper reel of all of our Zoom mistakes. It would have been hilarious. I don't know if Paige and Laurel would agree with me, but we go back every now and then and do sort of armchair quarterbacking of the work that we did coming out of the COVID gate. And we all cringe a little bit because we have gotten so much better. But if you want to watch a learning curve in real time, go back and watch some of our early videos and you're like, yikes. But we absolutely were committed to making it happen. And we moved everything online in like 10 days, I think. Chantal, that might be right. Lots of frustration, lots of tears, trying to understand what we were doing, but always being 100% committed to that outcome. And over, we have heard from people in their evaluations that they send in, just off the cuff conversations that we have with people, how much this online programming has meant to them to keep them connected to our community, keep us sharp professionally. The community librarians have been doing an amazing amount of work online, and I want to give a shout out to Tina and Dana, who mastered the video editing skills and have mastered managing a huge YouTube site. If you haven't been on our YouTube channel to see the amazing content, I encourage you to do so. We have everything from story times, like I mentioned, craft projects. We have cooking demonstrations, including a Puerto Rican food cooking demonstration that we did last spring that has had over 5,000 views. And we do laugh every month, like what video is going to get the most views. And it's kind of a neck and neck battle between a dance tutorial on how to do the hustle. And I am not joking. And then pickleball tutorials. And it's crazy. The numbers are crazy. It just shows that we rose to the occasion. I'm so proud of the work that we did and are continuing to do. And so when I hear you talk about the buildings that are going to be in our future, I get super excited because I know that the work that we learn to do virtually will be improved by the technology and the tools that are going to be outfitting our buildings in our rooms. So I'm super excited. Before I show you this, Chantal, there you are. Yeah, and I want to thank Chantal. I mean, just her complete faith and just like, yep, let's do that. And let's make this happen. That we couldn't have done, the cheerleading and the encouragement and the absolute patience that she had when we would stumble. She'd be right there to help us get back up. So anybody have any questions before I show I just have 2 quick slides, and then I want to answer any questions that you might have. Okay. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so when we forecast, we program primarily on monthly themes that we establish every May. We get a group of people together and we brainstorm themes, like what would we like programming to look like in any given month. And then within that month, we organize, well, pre-COVID, we were doing between 14 and 17 programs a month. During COVID, it was more like 9. And then at the end of the year, I go through the programs and categorize them because we are super interested in knowing what people want to come see. And so we divide it. We have a nice little scale, nice little chart. And we can see what is interesting to people by tracking the numbers of attendance, people in attendance, and how many of those types of programs that we offer. And then we have a nice little pie chart so we can refer and see what it is people like to see. Let's see. Till I get to the next slide. Whoa. Sorry. That was a program type. And this is the series. You can see the series that we did, the themes that we did last year. And the themes are always big and broad and wide. It gives us a lot of room to be creative and flexible. But we had a great program schedule last year, even in spite of COVID. Paige and Laurel were doing some really creative things and reaching out to new partners, which resulted in a great schedule. So any questions about those two slides? I just love graphs. I love data. I think knowing the data helps us make better decisions about resources and how we spend our time and how we spend the public's money.
Okay.
Liz, what is right here?
Oh, thank you for asking. So right here is a program that we started maybe 4 years ago, and Paige is now the administrator of that project. It's a project that we do to support our local writing community.
Oh, cool.
And the Right Here project is divided up into 3 different pillars, if you will. Writers writing, where they're actually doing writing workshops. Writers working, where we are offering professional development for writers. And then writers reading, where we actually have authors of all experience levels reading to each other in some format.
Yeah, I was very interested in that because it showed up in the results policies also under the newsletters, and that the Right Here newsletter going to 450 different people. And I just thought that was remarkable. The growth of that program over time is really.
Yeah, and it's really a great example of how DPL partners with groups. I mean, really that Right Here project was born out of a conversation between the library and the Central Oregon Writers Guild that actually came to us and said, we are looking to grow and to nourish the writing community in Central Oregon. What can we do together? So they are an important component to that project. And, you know, Paige last year or before COVID had just started adding Wordsmith Wednesdays, which was kind of an open mic night at the Commons. So it was in person. People could have a cup of coffee and try out what they were writing. And it was a great part of the program because it was attracting younger people, which our programming skews older. So we're always looking for ways to bring in the younger crowd. And, you know, Paige had kind of landed on this thing that was great, and then COVID. So I know she's looking forward to getting back to doing that when we can.
Liz, what's included in the No Islands?
Yeah.
What programming is there?
Yeah, so that was an interesting development because initially we started out with the theme was going to be No Polynesia. And we were going to do programs about Polynesian culture and Polynesian literature and music. And then the 3 of us realized we didn't know enough about Polynesia to do that without making a mess of it. So we switched to No Islands and we did, Animals of Madagascar. We had hired a local slack guitarist to do a Hawaiian guitar performance. This is where the Puerto Rican food cooking came in because Puerto Rico, you know, an island. So you can see we play pretty fast and loose with these themes, which it delights people. Even the presenters, when we reach out and say, this is our theme for the month, what do you think about fitting this? And then they often are like, well, that's clever. So we think it's, we enjoy it. It's fun. It feeds us as programmers.
I think it's great. It's very creative. I like it.
We've been doing it for a long time. And I remember the first month we did, I don't remember the year, but the first monthly theme that we did was No Dogs. And we had, you know, we built dog houses and we did training and just all kinds of fun stuff.
Cool.
Hey, Liz, what's
Yeah.
the time frame on these this data?
This is 2020 to 21. This was our fiscal year.
Wow.
So 2021.
Yeah, I do this big data dive every starting July 1, and usually I have it wrapped up. You know, I try to have it wrapped up mid-month.
And what is community focus?
Oh, community focus are things like League of Women Voters, forums. We did some programs with Deschutes County Mental Health. You know, these categories they're not, I don't want to say they're arbitrary, but they are, I try to keep the categories the same over time. So when I look back at this data from 4 years ago, I can have a like data set. So sometimes I am having to creatively fit things into a category.
So
Just-
are these community focused programs mainly programs that have been developed by other agencies, not the library?
I think that's, well, most of all the programs that we do are all developed by the library. So they could be things like I mentioned, the Deschutes County Mental Health, Paige did a homelessness one. Well, here's my little chart. I have a little chart with all my codes on it, and community groups, local issues. So, and I can go back in through my coding, the actual spreadsheet, Ray, and give you an idea of what some of those are, but I can't right now, I can't recall this.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
You kind of partner with other, like you said, mental health. So like, do you bring in the local mental health organization? Is that what, do you partner with other organizations in your programming?
Yeah, we partner as often as we can. For example, we just had started a partnership with the Kids Center. They were doing some in-person, they were going to do some in-person training starting this month. We put this month's on hold, but we're hoping that October and November will be able to be held. We partner a lot with COCC. We partner with whoever will partner with us.
Right.
Most of the programs are from a partnership of some kind throughout the region. And then also we've included a lot of people from Oregon too. What's been really neat during COVID is we've been able to work with people across the country as well. So, and that's where Liz and her team got really creative. They were able to pull in people that we would never have been able to partner with. So we have mostly local and regional, but we also now have been able to pull in some national partners as well, which has been great. And Liz is very humble, but as you can see, she is full of passion. She leads with passion. She's very smart and creative, and that has made all the difference during these very unsettling times to keep the spirit up, keep the creativity up, and to be undeterred, to just keep moving forward. And, you know, in the past, when we were meeting more in person, we could do more programs in person. So we had to cut back on some of our programs for doing an online format, but the impact has been great. Very, very impressive and strong with the online programs. So Liz, maybe if you could share two things. One, kind of what your future plans are about how to incorporate both. And then also maybe quickly discuss, and then maybe your time's up, but about how you measure and the different factors you consider in terms of even the cost per program, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. So I do not want to discount for 1 minute the amount of learning that we did this last year, and that virtual programming is now going to be a part of our regular menu. We learned that we were no longer bound by time and space. We could, to Chantal's point, we had programs with people from around the country, around the world for that matter, right? Novel Idea, Anne Griffin called in from Ireland. So, we are no longer bound by time and space. So we are going to be using that moving forward. We are experimenting, we were supposed to start experimenting with hybrid programming, where people could come in using the OWL, people were going to be able to enjoy programs in person, but also sign in, log in from home. That's going to be on hold until next month. Our buildings are limited with the technology. So that's why I'm super excited about the new buildings, because new technology will make it so much easier for us as we set up programs. I know that people are so anxious to get back in person. Every time the evaluations comes in, it makes our hearts a little sad. Like, what are you looking for, or what programs would you like to see happen at the library? And we get a whole lot of people saying in-person programs. So they're anxious, and we're anxious too. So when we measure our programs, the programs that we put together always need to be of interest to the community. And we gauge that by looking at the data that we collect over the years. But we never want to be afraid to try new things. Like, we know that history programs are hugely popular. That's a given, we know that. But if we continued to offer only a schedule of history programs, we would be doing a disservice to our community. So we are always pushing a little bit, trying new things. And if it doesn't work, but we gave it a shot, which I think is important. We count the number of people, we estimate, we keep track of the time that we spend planning and setting up and facilitating. And then we come up with the number of costs per person per program. And we used to do it down to the degree that I could tell you per branch, at each branch. That did not happen this year. So I could tell you that cost per person per program at Lapine was this much money in this given year. And we think that's important data to collect, just because like I said, it informs our decisions. That said, not all expensive programs, some of our very most expensive programs are also the most valuable to our community. Like the writing workshops that only have 10 people, where people are really getting a lot out of that workshop, those cost more than a history program that we have 60 people show up for. So we're always trying to balance those things out. But data helps us those decisions. I'm looking forward to having rooms where we don't have to turn people away, which happens frequently, or had been happening frequently before the shutdown, which speaks to the community embrace of the programming that we do. So Chantal, did I get it all?
I think so. The one last thing though, maybe, is you made an effort, a very concerted effort in the last 18 months to also include EDI work into our programs.
Yes, thank you. And that's something that thank you for reminding me of that. We, when the lockdown started, we had just committed to doing more equity, diversity, and inclusion type programming. And for us, that meant really making some intentional effort to form relationships with people in our community. Also reaching out to speakers about topics that hadn't normally been a part of our library programming schedule. So we are very, very, bringing in people to speak to own voice topics. It's tricky work, and we're working through it, but I think we've done a great job. We have at least one program a month that's highlighting a DEI issue. For example, Laurel is doing a program next week as part of Welcoming Week, and it's going to be in Spanish with an interpreter about the indigenous languages that are spoken in Oregon, mostly from the migrant worker community. So those types of things we're trying to bring forward in a way that's appropriate, and we're definitely learning. Any questions before I get so excited?
You're always excited about everything.
Excitement, Liz, is one reason why the programs have just flourished, and I commend you because you get me going about it every time.
Awesome. So just FYI, little secret on the down low, we did pick the the advisory committee last night picked the novel idea top 3. We've given the top 3 to Todd, so we're awaiting his guidance and wisdom, but we are looking forward to revealing that title in December. And it's going to be awesome. Any one of those 3 books, Todd, it's going to be great.
Let me ask you, Liz.
I second that.
Yes,
You
Ray.
stole my whole report, Liz. I
Oh,
mean,
sorry.
geez.
Ray, did you have a question?
Yeah. Going back to your last slide, the summer reading program,
Yes.
the attendance, how does that compare to pre-COVID?
Well, before you go into that, our next speaker is Sara Thompson. She's going to talk about summer with the
So we're
library.
reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. If you have any questions, send me an email. I'll try to answer.
I'm a shield for
Oh.
Sara.
Thanks,
you so
Liz.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Liz.
Liz.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, welcome, Sara. So we had summer with the library this year, and just as Liz said, many challenges. So Sara, tell us how that went.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad Liz went first, actually, because that everything she said about all the challenges about COVID and not being able to be in person, ditto. We had all of those same issues trying to do summer with the library. And you might notice I'm saying summer with the library instead of summer reading. So why am I doing that? One of the reasons is we have found that with our really early reluctant readers, anything that really focuses on the book and on reading makes them feel immediately left out. And so to encourage them, to kind of bring them in, we're saying summer with the library. And we really made a lot of it about activities that families can do together. So not only is it about reading a book together, but then reading a book about clouds and going outside and identifying the clouds. So that kind of thing to get those reluctant readers a little bit more involved. But the other thing that we are continuing to deal with, even this week with school starting, is that we have not been able to go into the schools. And, you know, in the past, May and June was when we would get out there, we'd be in the schools and we'd be promoting the students signing up for summer with the library. So we had to get creative again on how do we reach those youth, the families, when we can't go see them in those normal places. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of what changes we did this summer to try to address all of those challenges. So one of the things that I really want to shout out to is our staff in the buildings. They also tried to get really creative for us. They did amazing displays. If you missed the Lego display that was in Sisters, it was fantastic. You can see pictures out on Facebook. And they were promoting it and pushing it, which was awesome. But one of the things that we also realized as we have been really taking a good hard look, you know, internal retrospective look at how have we done summer activities in the past, not only were they for the people who are already comfortable reading, they were also for the people who already knew about the library. So a lot of it was very much about things that happened in the buildings. It was about getting people to come to the buildings. And it wasn't as much about reaching those new users who maybe haven't used the library at all yet. So that was another piece we really wanted to change this year. So what we did is we took the flashy library car and we picked out 16 different sites across Deschutes County, from La Pine up to Redmond and beyond. We focused on low-income neighborhoods, so places like Housing Works, and we selected half of those neighborhoods that had a high population of Spanish-speaking residents. And we set it up a schedule. We worked with the property managers, we worked with some partners, and we set up a schedule across the summer for 32 different visits, bringing the car and a whole bunch of other stuff, such as books and kits and bags, and just trying to get people excited. So it was really fun to just be out in the community and be where people were at. So us coming to them was really important. We gave away some prizes on our second visit, and on those sites to the Spanish neighborhoods, we were able to work with a local company called Intratel and have a Spanish interpreter come with us, so that there was always at least one person there who could speak Spanish with the residents. And speaking of partners, it was amazing. So once we had our schedule of sites built out. We sent that out to some folks that we've worked with in the past, and their response was fantastic. So, for example, Seed to Table would bring veggies out and give those away to people. OSU Extension brought little seed kits and talked to people about how to plant their own food. And all of these other partners also brought activities. And so at some of our sites, it became like a little festival. It was not just our library table, it was like 4 different tables of different people giving stuff away and showing folks how to do things. So that was super exciting to see. So all told, across those sites, we had over 300 people sign up for summer reading, but we ended up seeing almost 500 people total. And those numbers could have been higher, but then we learned another lesson. Not only were we battling COVID, we were also battling smoke and 100-degree days. And it turns out when the heat gets above a certain heat index, you're not supposed to work outside anymore. And we never really thought about that because, you know, we're not construction workers. We're not, you know, doing that kind of thing, but it does apply for us too. So we did end up having to cancel 7 visits due to smoke or heat or both. So that really gave us some food for thought, and we are brainstorming on how we can work around some of those challenges in the future. For example, in the most recent budget that was approved, thank you all very much, one of the projects we're going to be working on is a mobile library van. Now, you saw the Biblioteca or the Library on the Go car that we have. It's a Ford Escape. It holds a good bit, but it's kind of a pain to get stuff in and out. Everything's in a box. You know, we're hauling in, hauling out. The tent is very heavy, I have to admit. But with something like this, instead of setting up a tent, we can just open up those flaps. We've got built-in shade that way. The books are already on the shelves ready to go. So this is what we're researching right now to see what kind of vehicle would work for us and how we could get that out into the community. So stay tuned. I might have a whole different slide deck for you next year with really fun and exciting examples. And we just really appreciate everything that everyone across DPL did to help us do this. Facilities, IT got us tablets so that we can be showing people the apps they can get through the library. CR made a lot of videos and put them up on Facebook to show people what would happen at these outreach visits. So it was just a really, really fun summer. We're so glad that we did it this way. Again, COVID has challenged us to try things out that I don't know that we would have tried otherwise, and that was a good thing. So questions from y'all?
I think it's very exciting, the numbers of people that actually came out for your little car and the tables that you set up. So it makes me so excited for this new concept of the mobile van getting out. I think that is going to be so fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's just a really great opportunity to reach people in neighborhoods, and you know, I think people are really going to respond to it, and I can anticipate this effort just growing as you learn more and as you get better equipped to do it. And I really like your focus on reaching people, thinking about who's not coming to the library. I mean, because the people that have had their kids in summer reading every year are going to continue to have their kids in summer reading, but what other kids could benefit from this type of program? And I think it's tremendous. I think you guys did a really creative job at getting to kids who really can benefit from this program.
Mm-hmm.
So are the vans also going to be hotspots?
Yes. In fact, we've already started testing that out. We've done some outreach to Hunnell Road for some of the houseless community that's out there. So our librarian, Graham, and I have to give a big shout out to Chandra, our youth services supervisor, and Catherine Jasper, our adult services supervisor. They did so much great coordination for all of this. I mean, it was like moving dominoes at last minute all the time. So one of the things they've been doing is they take out a mobile hotspot as well as this really cool I think it's meant for camping, but you basically, it's a big battery and it has all these different outlets on it so that you can charge any kind of phone or device. And that's actually been the most popular, more popular than the hotspot is people just needed to charge their phones. They've got service if they could just get power.
Wow.
So we brought that out. We brought, we have books from our Shareberry collection. So as we're reading our collection, instead of sending it away to Better World Books, we've got this Shareberry collection instead that we can just give those away. So if folks have a problem getting to the library to return items and they don't want to risk getting a fine or a replacement fee, they don't have to worry about it. They can just take one of the Shareberry books. So yeah, that's already been happening.
What's been the results that you're seeing going up the Huddle Road?
It's been really, really positive. We're starting to get partners noticing us there and asking us to join them on some other visits to other locations. We're getting people who are starting to recognize us that we're out there and coming back. We're also getting folks who are renewing library cards that they had years ago, but they didn't think they would be able to get a library card again. So also just clearing up misconceptions for people about who can use the library.
That's fantastic. And I saw, I know that Tina posted, excuse me, those pictures of those visits on Facebook, and they just got a huge response. I mean, I think everybody in the community just really loved that idea. So again, just great creative thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Any other questions for Sara?
It sounds like we're going to a upgrade for Bookmobile 2.0.
We're trying not to call it Bookmobile.
No, I know. Book van, library on the go. 2.0.
Library van. Yeah, there we go.
A library.
Yeah, it'll be exciting. There's so many great
Library
examples
to
out
you.
there.
Right, I just think of all these new delivery mechanisms that don't involve a brick and mortar investment, but they allow the services to go exactly where they're needed. I just think it's a tremendous idea. So I'm excited to see the results of the things that were in the budget and see how the implementation goes.
Me too.
Which work best.
How much would each one of those vans ballpark?
Oh, it
cost?
really varies widely. I mean, one of the things I'm already finding in the early research is just even like, so some of these vans are counted by like the rows of seats you have in them. Just adding one row of seats changes what kind of driver's license people are required to have, like whether you need a commercial license or a regular one. So depending on how it's kitted out, that can really change the price by thousands of dollars. So that's what we're trying to look at is what do we absolutely need and what has to be built in versus what can just be added down the road as we figure out what the community is actually going to use.
What would be an entry level?
Oh, that's hard to say. I mean, Lynn, if you're still there, you probably have a good idea. I want to say we were looking at, do you remember?
It really varies. It can be as low as 50,000 for like bare bones minimum, but depending on, like Sara said, how you kit it out, what kind of custom you do, it can go up to $150,000. It really does vary. It varies on whether you go all electric or you do gas. So those are the things that we'll explore as Sara's team will explore as she gets further into this. But yeah, we're not going to go for the Cadillac, but we might be a little bit more than a bare bones. We do have a budget that was in our budget this past year, so we will be within that range.
What do we have in your budget?
I don't know what's in the adopted budget.
Oh. Read and quiz me?
You passed it, Ray.
We just pass it. We don't pay it. It's your department.
I think it's $150,000, and we were hoping that we could maybe get 2 out of that.
I mean, so that's quite reasonable based upon the results that you can achieve.
Yeah.
Especially if we're looking here and saying we're actually going to start addressing the houseless issue.
Yeah, and just, going to places where, they're not familiar with the library, or the library, they're, non-users, they just don't have access. So yeah, it's gonna be great. I think we're gonna try for 2 this year. We may be biting off more than we can chew, and we'll just maybe stick with 1, but we do have enough money in the budget. If we don't go too crazy and go for the Cadillac, we should be able to get 2.
Go for it. You can always ask for more.
Oh yeah, I'm looking for somebody who wants to, do a little in-kind donation.
Right. You could get them sponsored.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Actually,
But more to
That's
come.
in the foundation, and that's a great fundraising thing.
More to
that's a very
come.
viable idea to have your name on some book van
Oh yeah.
Right.
brought to you
Absolutely.
by. I mean,
Absolutely.
rolling advertising is terrific.
Yeah.
But this gets the houseless back into being more integrated into community.
Right.
Right. Yeah, even
Um,
just from the standpoint of having a card, which makes that transition easier.
Mhm.
Well, just getting them, they can start communicating now.
Right.
And, communication, feeling part of your community is one of the keys for successful living and creating community. If the library can be there, even just supply them with energy source and a Wi-Fi and books, topical. I mean, we can get them linked in, have lending iPads or whatever, and they can actually join in with our adult programming and
Right.
participate. I mean, this goes a long way to solving the isolation and houselessness.
Mm.
I don't think anybody else is doing it this way. You might take a look and see it nationally and internationally, what's being done on this with this type of approach. It'd be really interesting. You could, I could see trying to get the county and city involved, use some of their budget.
Okay. Any other questions for Sarah or comments?
Oh, thank you
And
very
I
much.
think Wiley has posted in the chat that the budget for this project is $150,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. We next are going to move to, thank you, Sarah, and we're going to move to our results policy monitoring report.
Okay.
So Todd?
Well, first of all, I just hope if you realize or thinking here is, one, the 2 programs that you just witnessed with Sarah and Liz basically are part of this results monitoring report. That's a lot of the work that goes into this report as well. Last year, when I did this report, we didn't look at the statistics till the end, and I thought it kind of was helpful in the discussion. So I'm going to jump right into a discussion of the statistics. Let's see. Which will be this. Okay. Hopefully you're seeing the statistics. Let's try to get that a little bigger for you. So just in general, as a reminder with our statistics, each one could probably tell multiple stories. A lot of what we do is try to look at them in combination with each other. But some pretty obvious things when you're looking at our statistics are we have 2 years of COVID. And so this is pretty much what we're looking at is about a 25% reduction in our overall usage during that time. And stop me at any point if you have any questions. Obviously, with the buildings being shut and having limited hours, that has also affected our attendance as well. And we can tell you a little bit about it, what that's looking like right now. Similar story across all of the branches. New cards also has decreased, and that's to be expected. This read, watch, listen percentages. This is basically the reason these bars all look the same is we're not measuring numbers. We're just measuring what people are doing. And as you can see, it's been fairly consistent for the last 5 years. The watching is definitely going down. A lot of that has to do with kind of the demise of DVDs. So that is not as popular as it was 5 years ago. And the listening going up is also a piece of the rise of digital audiobooks.
So Todd,
Yes.
let me ask you on all of this, all the data that you have, especially the district circulation, like for 2021, the buildings weren't open. How much of this represents physical circulation as opposed to electronic circulation?
Good question. Let's move on to the breakdowns and we'll see.
Okay.
So if you look like the read breakdown, here's the blue is our printed books and then our ebooks, so that you kind of see where our digital is. So digital has definitely increased over the last 2 years. And digital magazines, as you can see, is starting to increase at a significant compared to what it was before, whereas almost invisible 5 years ago to where it is now. That's the watching, as you see, the DVDs has gone down, especially when the buildings weren't open, that affected it. But the digital video downloads have been increasing over that time. The listening, as you see, the books on CD is kind of a dying format at this point. But the digital audio has really taken off. And as you can see, especially this year was a big jump from our previous year. So that's another example of where digital is taking off. As we've talked about, music CDs, also a dying format. We've actually taken those out of our collection. And the music downloads it's not something that's very significant for our checkouts. Did that answer your question, Ray? Kind of a breakdown of what that looked like?
Yeah.
Okay. District circulation by age genre, it's, as you can see, it's kind of staying similar in proportion to our checkouts, with the checkouts going down. Our book a librarian, this is an unfortunate one in that we were really increasing those numbers pre-COVID, and COVID has really had a big impact on that. So you've got 20, yeah, so you've got that there, and that really reflects our having to shut down our in-person service. For those of you that don't know, Book a Librarian is a service where people can make an appointment with the librarian. So if they have more in-depth research that they need, it's a great way to make sure you've got the right person at the right time. And that's again, that's one that we're looking at adjusting as we get back into post-COVID. So now the next few tables, the Oregon Library comparisons, those are, first of all, you'll notice it says 2019, 2020. It takes the state library that long to collect the numbers, so we're always about 2 years behind. So this is these are interesting statistics, but unfortunately, they're interesting statistics from a world before COVID.
Right.
So you kind of see how we were stacking up with other libraries in the state. Kind of in the top tier for, and these are the top libraries, they're not every library.
Todd,
so-
where is Cedar Mill but their numbers are high.
They're always high.
They're always high. Where are they? What are they doing?
Well, I
It's-
think, let's see, didn't Ann Ness, didn't you say that you had some experience with Cedar Mill?
Yes, I used to do training with the children's library for preschools and childcare. It's a library that's on the border. It's actually in the Beaverton School District, but it's kind of on the border between Beaverton and the West Hills of Portland.
Exactly right.
And they have
Great,
kind of,
great little library.
yeah. And one advantage they have is a number of communities in the surrounding area that all kind of converge there.
Mhm.
For the first time, you see our digital per capita. Multnomah finally passed us, which that took them a number of years to get there. They remember their we get 55 cents per $1,000 assessed value. I believe theirs is $1.19 per 1,000.
Wow.
When they got their special district passed a few years ago. So that definitely is starting to have an impact on their service. Let's see, the last one here is just our website overview. You can see the one thing with COVID are that it's definitely driven a lot of people to our online environment, and that's definitely increased the numbers on our public website.
Wait, Todd, you
Yes.
skipped over the adult program attendance and the teen program attendance.
I'm
I
sorry.
thought those were outstanding. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that if we look back at some of the previous years, I don't think we were that high in the adult program. It'll be very interesting to see next year with COVID because our numbers kind of went up with, as Liz just showed. So yes, I think that shows, that kind of gives you a real sense when Liz is telling you that they had, how many programs they plan and what it looks like. You get a real sense of how that compares with the rest of the state here.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
The teen programs is always one that I've kind of looked at, and part of this might be how people are reporting their statistics, but we definitely focus more on getting out to where teens are than waiting for them to show up at the library. And that reflects in our attendance. So that means getting out to the schools, having programs, again, out where the kids are.
You know, the problem has always been, if you look at the left-hand scales, teen programs 0.02, adults are 0.1, children's 0.2, almost.
I have to,
Or 0.25. I mean, we're 5 and 10 times lower or higher for the others than teens. Teens have always been a problem nationally also.
oh,
So
thank
it's
you.
libraries.
That is definitely, that's a great thing to point out is the scale here. But actually
It's a hard nut to,
0.1, yeah.
as they say, that's a tough nut to crack,
Mhm.
starting in middle school.
Mhm.
Kind of hoping
is.
Harry Potter would have made a difference.
And then you see we're right up there with our children's programs, which is kind of exciting. Is that Corvallis Benton is some. I need to check in with them because they've done something different this year. They've risen to the top.
So Todd, I had a question on the public website overview.
Yes.
So this tracks hits to our website, but it doesn't really account for app usage, right? Or does it?
I'm gonna let Wiley answer that question.
It's just the public website.
Right, so do we have any measure of app traffic?
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I could certainly get it for you.
Yeah, that might be a great statistic to add next year, just because I think people are accessing us from all different ways digitally, including the YouTube channel. And like, do those YouTube hits factor into this?
Well, those would be separate.
Yeah,
Those factor more into our program, our adult and children and teen program.
right.
And they,
But still, they're hits on our content.
yeah.
Will those factor into attendance?
Yeah, we consider that attendance.
So it's all in there.
Yes, it is. That's exactly. Not so much since those were 2 years ago. It's definitely going to reflect more with the increase in online programs over the last year.
Yeah, the data pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and post-pandemic. Of course, hopefully we'll start getting some post-pandemic data soon. But we'll never know. I keep saying the one thing that the pandemic has done, if there's anything good, is it's brought the future into the present. So let's see how much of the future actually sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think people really can recognize the utility of a lot of things that have developed. And like Liz said, they will be continue because it's kind of like streaming versus watching live TV. It allows you to access content whenever it's convenient for you and wherever you are. So I think that's great. But, and I'm actually thinking about it. It's the numbers for things like physical item circulation and the, a 25% decrease in usage overall because of the pandemic sounds, that's a large number. But when you think about it as a 75% retention of people using their libraries, I think that's pretty remarkable. And same thing with the physical item circulation. Those numbers are actually pretty impressive when you consider how hard it was to get to those physical items. People really persevered. And I was coming to the library because I was getting books for a friend during that time. And people were, it was like whatever it took, they were in there getting their books. And it was actually pretty cool to see. So yeah, I think the statistics, nobody likes to see a 25% decrease, but actually I think that's pretty good considering.
What's interesting here on attendance, table 3, 2021 compared to previous years, the largest branches, downtown and Redmond, took the biggest drops. Not in total number, but actually I think on a percentage basis too. The smaller libraries maintain. The Pine Sisters, Sun River, and East Bend took a drop, but not as dramatic as the larger branches. I wonder what that's telling us.
Well, part of that has to do with the scale. They were all about equal in where they went down.
Percentage wise?
Yeah. Lynn can probably give you some better numbers on that. She tracks that pretty closely. Lynn, do you have anything to say on that? Or did we lose you? There you go.
Sorry, I can't click fast enough. Well, I think too, like the attendance example on table 3, I think if you did them separately, each branch separately, I think you'd see some more dramatic. It would look more dramatic in the smaller branches where like right now they look pretty even. But I am kind of tracking it month to month to kind of see where we're doing. And we are starting to see some increases in our attendance and our circulation, our first circulation checkout. So I think we're going to see it increase even more as we go back to October. Coming up in October, we're going to reinstate the hours that we lost, especially at our downtown Bend branch. So I think the increases are happening. I think, again, we're still at negative numbers, and my comparisons that I'm looking at are from 2019 to March 2020. I'm going before COVID.
Oh, you're right.
So I'm really looking at where we were before COVID hit. So like last fiscal year, the part of it didn't even happen. And I'm really looking at those 9 months that we were open from July 2019 to March of 2020 when we closed. And then we closed, just a reminder, we closed for 14 weeks. So to me, that number is more, and again, I could do a COVID update where we're at and the growth in maybe in a few months again, as I continue to track this and getting more information. But I am seeing that our attendance and our first checkouts we're starting to come back ever so slowly. And I think we'll get another big bump here in the fall when we reinstate our hours.
Yeah, I think that would be a great report, Lynn.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know you've got a big one coming up in collection development in November, and I don't want to steal any thunder. So maybe we'll do it in January-ish, and then I can get like a full calendar year's worth of info.
That'd be good. That'd be
Yeah.
good. But Todd, you're right. It's about 50% for everyone.
Yeah. That's always beware of graphs.
Yeah.
Well, there's statistics and then there's outright lies.
Yeah. Graphs sometimes when you put them all together and compare lots to smaller ones, it doesn't even out. You kind of have to look at them individually.
Right. On a percentage basis, it's comparable.
But we'll do something next year.
Okay.
Yeah, we
so
used to have, I think we used to have statistics where it was broken out by branch and then an aggregate one on the same scale, so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's a very important piece of data by branch. Not just,
Right.
can we do circulation? Can we do programming by branches? I don't know if it's possible.
Everything's possible. It just depends on what level of detail you want. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say the circulation and the attendance part is a lot easier because we actually have something counting us. Programs, you know,
Right.
I don't know that it's fair yet. We're not in full form yet with our programs. That might be wrong. But circ and attendance, we can definitely look at.
Yeah, circuit attendance would be great.
Okay, so the next part of this is the written report. I know you've had a chance to read it over, so I kind of wanted to see if you want to just go through it and see where you have questions. I've got staff on hand ready to help answer. And let me bring that up. Starting with our first result, residents acquire an appreciation of reading and desire for knowledge. With the sub-result, residents find physical and digital materials when and where they want them and obtain the help they need to make choices. So we do a lot. So that's kind of like Greg was saying when he was reporting. I've got a lot to say, but I'm really more interested in your questions to see what you don't know or what you'd like more information on.
I had a question.
Yeah.
About on the curriculum crate collection. How many crates are there?
Let's see. I do not know. And Emily is not online, so.
Okay, that's okay. I'd love to know, maybe it can be reported next time we hear from Emily, but I'd love to know how many, and I'd love to know what's the most popular.
Oh, okay. Great. Sorry, I don't have an answer to that.
That's okay.
I
Know
have
everything.
I have a question on the paid Google ads, and I see the clicks there, but I'm not sure what that means as far as, is that for the money that's paid for them? Is that a really good result?
Oh, Could we kind of hold our questions? Could we kind of go topic by topic so we're not bouncing around? It's a great question, but could we just kind of go in order? Would that be okay with
Sure.
everybody?
Uh-huh.
I think it make it
Yes.
easier for Todd, and then we wouldn't get car sick when he's scrolling through the
Thank you.
document.
Thank you. So any other questions on the first bullet on 1?
Yeah, I had, go ahead.
No, you just go ahead in.
Oh, I had a question about what enhanced records in the catalog meant regarding the EDI project.
Sure, I think I could butcher that. Maybe Lynn, maybe you give a better answer than I could on that one.
Can you repeat the question? I had to step out for a minute. I just heard the very end of it.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what enhanced records meant for that EDI bullet, like what constitutes an enhanced record?
Okay, well, and of course, I am probably going to completely butcher this because Emily is not here. But what the tech services team have been doing is they've been looking at various subject headings and noting that it doesn't fit the vocabulary that is being used today. Some of the vocabulary that, especially our subject headings and keywords, they are antiquated. For example, I think up until just a very few, and I think Emily may have talked to you guys a little bit about this in a prior board meeting, but for example, illegal aliens was used for a subject heading, for example, which is no longer, we don't use. And I apologize, I don't know what she's changed it to, but we're not using that phrase any longer. And she has done a lot of enhanced work with a vendor called Backstage, which does authority work for us. And she's getting all kinds of records that are brought in, and they analyze and they look at the subject headings the team does, and they either change or they add or they edit keywords and subject headings to the bibliographic record. And it's completely seamless. The customer doesn't even know it. So if they just type in the word diversity, they're going to find materials based on keywords and subject headings and also titles. It just brings more things to the forefront.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
And I can actually ask Emily if you'd like a little bit more information on that. She can do that in her November presentation.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Emily did a full program just on that at OLA. So
yeah,
yeah.
No, she's really great at it, and I'm so embarrassed. I'm so glad she couldn't hear me fumble through that. But she's also just got done doing a presentation for Innovative Interfaces, the national conference for the Innovative Interfaces users group, about words and why they matter, and that was also very well received. So I can have her do a little bit for us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I just wanted to say I really appreciated the fact that the hot titles has been increased to 3 weeks. So I always have a couple books that I got that were hot titles. I had a hard time getting through in 3 weeks because they were such big books. But anyway, I like that.
Yeah, that was a good thing. That was an example of how the team worked together to say, okay, this is how our customers are using our hot titles and our DVDs. We need to listen, and between the library operations and tech services, that we landed on that 3 weeks. So that was great. That was a good change. I'm glad you like that, Cynthia.
Okay, any other questions on that sub bullet? Okay.
The next one is residents access programs and services that stimulate discussion, curiosity, literacy, and appreciation of reading. And a lot of these have to do with some of the topics we just covered. So let me know if there are any questions on that one.
I think that these statistics are very interesting, and they're impressive. That's great outreach.
Yeah, I thought pickleball, really? That many? That was crazy.
I thought that was such an interesting mix of the top 5 views for video.
Right.
It really showed what a diverse group of people are utilizing the library is what I thought.
Right. I mean, when you look at the topics covered, everything
Yes.
from athletics to cooking to art to, yeah. And I think that's one of the real strengths of our programming department is that I think they really go into some areas that are not traditional for libraries. And I think it's that unexpected nature of some of the programs that has captivated our population and is one reason that our libraries have such loyal followings. I mean, they continually think out of the box, and we do things that other library systems just don't do. And I think people respond to that. I think it's great. It makes it fun and exciting, and it also connects people to information that they need for their lives. So I just think it's tremendous.
Hey, Todd?
Yeah.
I haven't used our YouTube channel, but I'm assuming that if you go to the library YouTube channel, you don't need a library card to access.
No, you do not.
So not too surprising, pickleball being the pretty much the #1 sport in the US now, new sport of all ages. It started out with seniors, but now they have, Ben just had its, I think, second or third national competition here. And there are people who are doing this for a living. There are pickleball contests where there's what, $25,000, $30,000 first prize or more. It's become a huge international sport, I think. So not too surprising. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those views are not coming from here.
Oh, definitely.
Which is a great thing to remember, because with the internet, electronic data, electronic access, we're reaching the entire world. So now how do we count attendance?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say there's actually an answer to that question, how we count attendance. And Chantal, stop me if I'm saying it wrong, but basically what we try to do is take the numbers of people that watched it in a certain period of time. So that gives us a better sense of what they're watching locally. So we don't give you the numbers. For example, the pickleball video doesn't show up in our statistics. We don't count 8 months worth of people watching it, because at that point it is getting around the world and it's harder for us to pinpoint it to local.
Oh, that's one way to try.
That's right. We look at, the time of when we post it. So how many people actually are watching it at the exact time of our live online program. And then we track it more locally within the first 10 days. Beyond that, we know it's getting out into the world through different ways. So we feel like that could be cheating a bit, because then we could be showing up in Australia and other places. So we really focus on the first 10 days.
But I look at things like story times and things like that, and I can imagine parents accessing those over and over and over again. So those numbers may actually be lower.
Yes, exactly. So with the story time, exactly, and people are watching those multiple times. With the adult programs, it's usually we find that people just watch it 1 to 2 times. It's not a multiple experience. So story times are different than the adult programming.
Right.
Yeah. And learning a dance or something also people may come back to, because they're wanting to watch it to really perfect
Refine their hustle technique.
Right. Yeah.
It takes time to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I see nothing wrong with counting the attendance as the number of hits forever and ever.
Yeah.
You've done the program, you put the effort in. It's like having a book on the shelf that we put on the shelf 10 years ago. If it's still circulating, it's still circulating.
Hey, any other questions on that before we go to residents explore and discuss topical issues in a safe and neutral environment. Yeah, this is one where we just highlighted some of the programs that we had that were really geared towards creating those discussion moments. In all reality, all of our programs have discussion pieces, but these are ones that were most specifically met your result.
Mhm.
Just having from attended programs over the years, I think that community, the conversation, the discussion aspect of that, which programming has been so diligent about ensuring happens at some point during the program. I think that's one thing that has really been missing from the online piece, that people really do miss the opportunity to be able to talk about these ideas with each other at the time. And I've watched so many just really wonderful exchanges of people that maybe had experience with the topic that brought forth their experience, and then the questions that they got beyond what the presenter was talking about. And it really did become a community conversation. And I know that people are anxious to get back to that.
But do the programs that we've done virtual, is there should be a time, I assume, built in for discussion at the end and questions and answers based upon what the presenter wants to do, right?
Yeah, we've continued that throughout the online programs as well. But I think I agree with Anne. It's been more meaningful when it was in person, but we have continued it throughout all our online programs. So when we hosted authors, we've had chat where people could ask questions and then the author is able to answer those questions. So it's just not as fluid as when you're in person, but we've definitely kept that component going because it is an important component. Yeah.
I found that depending upon the group and how often or how familiar they are with something like a Zoom presentation or meeting, it goes pretty well when you have people who have never done it before and they just speak out. Then it becomes difficult. So it's a matter of people getting more used to, or if we lay down the ground rules for interaction at the beginning of a program, like you raise your hand or raise the chat hand even, it goes pretty well. But we'll see what happens as time goes on.
Okay, residents understand the types and scopes of services that the library provides. All right, we're up to your question, Bunny. I think that is, so now I'm trying to remember the question. It was around the paid Google ads. And then I can't remember what your question was.
But yeah, we have, I mean, there's more. We haven't gotten to that bullet yet, but well, I guess that is getting down there. I just wondered with the paid ads, I don't really know, is that a lot of hits or are we really getting, is that highly successful? You just passed it.
Oh, sorry. There you go. There you go.
So are you talking about the digital ads or Facebook?
The digital, I think the digital ads we did with Google.
Okay, so yeah, so those are paid digital Google ads. And when you see that we had total clicks of the 35,600, that's the number of times someone actually, an individual clicked on that ad and followed it through. So if we had, let's say an ad about our online digital book collection, which we have, that was one of our campaigns during the pandemic that went pretty well. And so that means that people clicked on that specific digital ad and it took them to the library's digital collection. So they're really engaged. The impressions is the number of times that we have exposed people to different ad highlights to our ads that we have sent out into the world. So that the 4.18 million is more how many ads went out and how many times people saw it, but they maybe didn't click all the way through.
Okay.
I have Tina on. Tina, if she's available, she can explain it better than I can.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know if this computer is working. Chantal, I think, explained it pretty well. We are very new in the digital ad space. We're just getting our legs under us. So we're happy with where we are with these clicks. That, like Chantal said, that 4.1 million really is, it's just the eyeballs that may see that. So Google decides, we give Google a little bit of direction in terms of where we want these ads to appear, whether that's geographically right. We only want them in Deschutes County. We of course don't want our ads showing up in Washington. And we can dial in even, tighter geographically if we just want to hit sisters or another area. But that just means that Google is going to serve that ad up in those specific areas that we've targeted, and it's just going to scroll by somebody's screen. So that's where you get the impression, 4.18 million. When somebody actually engages with it, clicks it, that's where you get the click. And after they click, we lose track of what happens next, but that's in Wiley's domain. That's in the e-services, tracking that click and turnover.
Good.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina. I hope you all could hear that. Something else, though, too, we are hoping to hire a digital media staff person who will manage this for us, because it has become such a major way to advertise and to try to draw people in to the library. So kind of the old-fashioned ways of marketing, it's similar to like our traditional books and now like audio and digital books. It's all needed and everyone wants all of it. So now we have to make sure that we're covering from traditional media and marketing like newspapers, radio, to now getting into this digital world. And we've been very involved in social media, and that's where Tina has really escalated us into a very robust social media presence. And now with digital ads, we're just kind of, we've been in that game probably 2 years. So I think we're doing well, but we hope to continue to do even better and have a deeper impact on those ads reaching people.
So
Good.
one of the exciting things of this, because is the old way of doing it is we'd run an ad in the bulletin and kind of hope that had an impact. And those ads are expensive. These ads are actually quite cheap at a much lower cost. The challenge for us is it's a lot of staff time. That's why we need more staff. But to be able to actually go in there and know that we were trying to advertise our downloads and we got 15,000 people to click into it. I can guarantee you that we've never run a newspaper ad that got 15,000 people to go to anything. So
yeah,
so
and
it's exciting.
And one other really cool thing, because in this Department of Community Relations, we love to measure things and to understand things. And so with the digital and social type marketing, you're able to really, you're able to work with the algorithms that show you who are you reaching. First, you can identify who you want to reach and get very specific. And then it'll show you, were you effective? And this is who you reached. And this is how many people you reached. And as Todd just said, in traditional marketing, that's harder to really know, what did that newspaper ad really do for us? But in digital and social, you really do know the impact, and it is a lot less money than traditional media.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the answers.
Okay, any other questions on, as you can see, this is probably one of our bigger areas, and there's a big reason for that is a lot of the work that we've done in the last 12 months has been making sure that we are getting the word out about what we're doing, because the way we operate has changed so dramatically. It's been very important for us to get out in front of people who are isolated, who have been sheltering in place, and making sure that they're finding out about how we are serving.
Todd, I have a quick question about the lawyer in the library program. I know the lawyers are doing this on a volunteer basis, but how do they become involved, or how do we recruit them, or how do we, have them available?
I can talk to that.
Okay.
Hi, this is Sara. So we have Jenny Peterson, who is our librarian who works with the law collection. She is a member of the Access to Justice Committee. And this is a group that meets sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, made up of judges, lawyers, court folks, so all people across the county. And that group then tries to recruit lawyers to sign up to be a volunteer for us. So they have to go through a background check. They have to meet certain criteria, and the Access to Justice Committee takes care of all of that for us, which is awesome. It's been interesting as we've been doing Lawyer in the Library virtually. We were really hoping that we could start getting more lawyer volunteers so that we could really expand that. But it's still been a struggle. I think, as more and more folks are working at home with their kids around, they're finding that their time is not as flexible as they thought it would be. So it's been a learning opportunity.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions in that area?
Todd, I had a question about what the re-engagement e-newsletter, what that involved.
I had the same question.
I can speak to that. Can you guys hear me? This is Tina.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So we, Emily provided us with a list of people that had not been using their library card. I believe Chantal, Sara, maybe you can remind me, I think it was within 12 months, they've gone 12 months without using their card. So we got those emails and got on a schedule of sending out re-engagement.
Okay.
Hey, just reminding them that we're here. These are the services and resources that we offer. And we had planned to do that quarterly. COVID changed that a little bit, especially when we weren't open. We didn't want to send people re-engagement emails when we couldn't come back into the library. That's about ready to pick back up again.
Okay, thank you. I assumed that that's what it was, but I didn't know.
I didn't, so I'm glad to know.
Thanks, Tina. And just, one little bit of kudos for the communications team. We have two staff working in communications with me, so 3 total. But really it was Tina and Dana who did all these newsletters and a lot of this, the advertising, et cetera, and got this out with the help too of community librarians providing content. So it was a good group effort, but they never had a break during COVID. In fact, their hours were crazy during COVID, just trying to keep up, and our communications really nearly tripled during COVID. It was an interesting time, and it still is an interesting time, but we were producing the newsletters on a weekly to every other week schedule instead of monthly, because we felt like it was so critical for people to stay informed, to feel connected. And that was a big role the library was playing in their lives. So just kudos to all this immense work that went forth in communications. And also Wiley and his team and e-services in the website, because we were constantly adding and shifting and changing in that too. So again, COVID really showed us that online communications was really essential.
Okay. The third bullet is all residents find safe and welcoming places to meet and interact with others to engage in individual pursuits. And for me, this one ties in directly with what we're trying to do with remodeling our buildings, upgrading our facilities, and creating new facilities. And so that's where my interpretation lies with these. I don't know if there are any questions on that.
Yeah, Todd,
Yes.
on the first bullet, due to rapid population growth in Deschutes County, the library currently struggles to meet this board results.
Yes.
What's the data we have on that?
What's the data on that?
Yeah, other than anecdotal, I've heard us say that because the population is growing, we're having difficulty with space, but where's the
tracks
data?
down to the number of incident reports we're having with conflicts in the library. It tracks down to the number of times we're turning people away from programs. It's when we're having more overlap of kind of different things, like a noisy type activity versus quiet activity. Just when we are putting more people into a smaller space, basically, that is where we're struggling to meet this result.
Do we have figures on that? I mean, do we have data? This is sort of anecdotal.
It is anecdotal. I don't have hard numbers on this.
So this is more of a feeling that we have.
It's a well-informed feeling, but yes.
We can provide some information in terms of programs, Ray, that would help in terms of who we've had to turn away at different programs. You know, one program that comes to mind was the astronaut in the downtown Bend Library. This was pre-COVID, but we had to turn away around 60 people for that program. So we track that, at least. If that can be helpful, we can provide some insight there.
Yeah, so that'd be good. And also the number of programs where we have not had to turn away people. So actually what I'm looking for is data that says we are running into problems with spacing for programs in general. There are specific ones like the astronaut, you say, the ukulele one, I can see the train man. Those are all very
well, those are
popular.
Yeah, that's a little different. The train man's like an event, but in our real programs that we do, we can go back and help get some data there.
Yeah, I'd like to see the data
old.
that actually is, oh, excuse me?
It's older because we're now in COVID, so everything's been online. So it'd be 2 years ago.
Well, that's fine. I mean, if we go back, because Ben has gone through growth spurts before, well, the county has. If we can look to see that is there a direct correlation between population density, population growth, and our things like turning away people from programs. How many programs, how many people had to do that? Groups wanting to use our facilities, the rooms, and not being able to. You know, we've asked for that type of data before, but we have to work from data and not just the feeling.
Well, I think some of it is difficult to quantify because if you've got, for instance, meeting room conflicts that only one group can use a room at a time, and you've got multiple people asking, and after the third time they ask, they stop asking and they try to go someplace else. So, I mean, I think it's so there's an absence, but that doesn't mean there's an absence of demand.
That's more of an assumption that they won't come back and ask again. I know a lot of people who keep coming back and asking and finally getting time in the in a meeting space. They go ahead and do it. I think we need to see the data that actually says how many times have we had and how many groups have had to be rejected.
Yes, and meeting rooms is one piece of this. Also highlighting the fact that what happens in our buildings. And that's the piece where it's hard for me to put numbers around. But the fact that you go to the Redmond Library and it's hard to concentrate through your reading because you're hearing kids screaming. And there's no other space for you to go because the building's full. You know, how does that impact it? That's kind of what I was getting at with the number of people that we're having in the buildings. As basically the more people we're getting in the buildings aren't getting bigger. So we're having more conflicts of different activities happening, people bumping into each other, getting upset with each other. That's a growing challenge. Again, just imagining the downtown library when we had 35,000 people in Bend versus when we have 90,000 people in Bend.
But have we had the proportional increase in attendance at a single time? Are people, like, I can see a piece of data might be the number of complaints that we're getting because of noise. If that's the case, or people object, complaining about something, it gives you a data point that we have.
Yeah.
But it's not always, you look at the skill of the staff in diffusing incidents. So, I mean, it's not always like a formal complaint. It's just something, it's behavior that's occurring within a facility.
Yeah, but we could have an incident report and then how many times the staff has had to intervene. It's there already. So we need to have I'd like to see the data that actually says, yeah, the buildings are overly crowded and this is how we know. And this is what's happened because of that. And this is how we know that it's overly crowded, related to crowded, and not just related to, say, a particular individual.
Okay, we'll have to look at some ways that we can start looking at those numbers.
And I think the data may already be there if we go ahead and dig for it. If we have incidents reports from staff.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to say something. I think statistics are important while you're collecting data, but I also believe that anecdotal information is equally important. And so I think if we're getting reports from the individual librarians or the individual libraries with incidences that are stating they're having to turn people away, or the noise level, or something also that gives you the information that the library is crowded, I think that's equally as important. I'm a firm believer in anecdotal information. Maybe it's from my years of teaching, but I do think that that's important information as well.
I agree. And we can have the librarian say how many, every time this occurs, it becomes a data point.
Yeah, again, if I could just also add to the conversation, it's kind of an art and a science when we talk about things like this. Because anecdotally, I agree, Cynthia, it's important. For example, most recently and during COVID, we've had to stop our vaccination clinics at the Redmond Library because there was a point entering the building where it was too crowded. And the Deschutes County Health Department recognized it. We recognized it. We had issues with it. And they eventually they pulled it. Now, did we write an incident about that? No. Did we do an occurrence on that? But we do have some anecdotal, and the anecdotal meaning we had some real conversations. So again, I think there's a combo there, right? And we can certainly pull some occurrence logs and some incident reports. That will be the data part. But I think you also have to keep in mind too that every incident that a librarian or a public services specialist at any of our branches, they're not always going to take the time to sit down and say, somebody argued with somebody and then they left. We don't write things out like that. And it happens on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis. So I just wanted to put that out there. But we get the data.
And that fits exactly with what I'm saying. So I think just having the librarians being able to say, these are my experiences, I think that's equally important.
Mm-hmm. As I'm an engineer and I love data as much as anybody else, but I would like to say we've heard from Liz and Sara and everyone about what they've done and how much they've done during COVID. I think we as a board have to be careful not to pile more things on them unless it's very important. It's not our job to pile this stuff on them.
I agree 100%.
We have to work from information. And, we have to work from data points that say these, if the incident occurs, like Lynn just said one, that should be a data point for us. This happened and why.
And
But
my
again,
God,
Ray, it's not something
they
that was
did-
written down. Sorry, Bunny.
They've given us, I mean, pages and pages and pages of data in here. I don't think we can criticize them for not giving us data.
I agree.
Well, Bunny, which one of the data that we've just gotten, all the statistics, actually shows that we don't have enough space to meet the results policy?
The anecdotal information that Lynn and the other librarians have shared with us.
Well, but
I don't need numbers.
And just to help you all with this, I hear what Ray's saying. We will dig in and look at where there are ways that we can add to this.
yeah,
As you said, the numbers are probably there. I will say a lot of it, it's still anecdotal is still a powerful piece in this. Just I could count the number of times people say, I'm not going to go to the library anymore because I don't enjoy the experience I have when I go there. That's something, that's a challenge for us, because once they go, how do we count them?
Right. And I think that there are some broad areas that we look at beyond specific anecdotes of specific occurrences to say, as Todd said, well, the population has increased by X. I think we would be foolish not to think that that has not had an impact in our facilities. The fact that we now have a security firm downtown, because we're not doing that for no reason. We're doing that because conflicts are occurring.
Exactly.
And so there are some broad things that are common sense that we don't need a statistical measure precisely on that. And I think also, in our results policies, does this fit into a smaller mixing bowl category? Do we want to call out where further measurements are needed? In this case, what I hear you saying is that you want more of this type of data in this response, but I think what I hear other people saying is that this interpretation that Todd has given is reasonable. And I think he's listening to you saying that you want more information, but I think, our test is, has he used a reasonable interpretation about whether or not we're meeting this result? And in my mind, this is reasonable.
so what I'm hearing you say is that we really don't need to measure an outcome.
I'm not saying that.
Just
I'm
look
not.
at,
A statement was made. A statement was made due to the rapid population growth in Deschutes counties that Redmond, the library currently struggles to meet this board's result. I think as we've all said, or several of us have already said, this does not need a number statistic to it. It seems to, maybe I'm interpreting what you're saying wrong, Ray, but I'm interpreting you to say that for Todd to make that statement, you need a number that shows that. I am saying, and I believe Ann, Malkin, and Bunny are saying the anecdotal information that they have collected is enough for us to say, yes, that statement can stand.
well, let me put it this way. If I just say, for bullet 1, how do you know? How do we know?
How do you measure whether people
No,
are
I just-
intimidated or feel supported.
Doesn't matter to me how you measure it or what data you have, if it's anecdotal, but how do we know? What are we basing this on?
We're basing it on the information that the librarians have from the various libraries have shared with Lynn and Todd when they've had conversations. I mean, it's the same thing when I would measure my students' growth. There were times when I measured my students' growth, not based on the numbers, because maybe the numbers didn't show their growth, but it was based on the anecdotal information that I had gathered on my students, my observations of them.
I think too, that like Todd said, when you built downtown, there were 35,000 people in Deschutes County or Bend. And now in Bend, now there's 90,000. I would say we're probably over 100 now. But to me, that's pretty obvious, going from 35 to 90,000. That library's got to be cramped. Otherwise, if that library wasn't cramped, we're not doing our job in getting people out there and into the library. So I'm proud that it is cramped.
And all the other information that we've been shared today that has numbers attached to it shows all of those aspects of the library service has grown.
And I hear what everybody's saying. I just want to point out, I didn't put a lot of effort into this one because of the fact that one, that's the reason we're doing this entire bond project. And so I didn't feel like it needed more explanation, but I'm hearing that you want more explanation. And so message heard.
Well, I just want to put in real quickly, it was very interesting for me to hear just in this discussion about the vaccine clinics being discontinued. And there again, that was a joint decision between ours and the public health, but because of a space issue. And also to hear that 60 people were turned away from a particular program because there wasn't space. So just looking at that bullet, but then having that information, shared today gave me a better picture of what you were saying there, Todd. So
thank you.
I think maybe if we had just a little more information under that bullet, it wouldn't have to be totally in depth, but those examples were very helpful for me to understand what's going on in the library.
Okay, good.
Great.
Thank you.
Good point, Anne.
Okay, any other thoughts on the 3 and the 2 sub-bullets? And looks like we lost Ray. Oh, and he's coming back. Okay. So the next one is 4, residents obtain information to resolve an issue or an answer a question, have the skills and resources to search for, locate, and evaluate information to meet their needs. Starting with residents obtain the information they need to fully participate in community making decisions. This one is somewhat similar. We didn't put the same numbers, but it's very similar to the one about stimulating discussion. They're 2 similar programs.
Just one did.
That's weird. I thought he's cleaning the TV, so I thought maybe he hit a wire or something, but.
Well, maybe he did.
Okay, any questions on the first bullet? Okay. And
But you can't communicate?
Yeah, okay.
but we can hear you, Ray.
Yeah, I apologize. My computer just went dead all of a sudden.
Oh. Okay.
I'm back on my laptop.
Oh, okay. The next sub bullet, new residents obtain information in a supportive environment and use library resources designed to assist their transition to life in Central Oregon. And these are kind of a fun one. These are some definitely new things we're doing. Creating the Central Oregon collection, the Wilderness Pass, and then also our staff going to the Ben Young Professionals meetings has been a very positive aspect for us.
What does the Central Oregon collection consist of, and how do people find that?
How do they find it? I think if you search, well, one, if anybody has a great answer for that, if you actually type in Central Oregon collection, you get that from our catalog.
Right, but how do people know that that exists?
Oh, okay. Well, one, it's highlighted in the buildings.
It is a collection that's growing, and it's a fairly new collection. It does highlight some Central Oregon history, travel, hiking, biking, new trails, everything that is Central Oregon. So it does expand into Crook and Jefferson County, but they're not books that would be considered historical. They're more about what to do in Central Oregon, how to start a business in Central Oregon, and that kind of thing. And Todd just brought some of them up. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. They're more popular in Central Oregon versus something that might live at the Deschutes Historical Museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
One's covering the landscape and geography. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Oh. Let's go back to your earlier question. 56 curriculum crates in our catalog. And you were asking about that.
Did you find out, was it able to find out which ones maybe are the most popular, the most checked out?
That I don't know.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. Next one, residents have the support they need to improve their technology literacy skills. And that our community librarians have been doing one by answering online questions. And we're highlighting the answering online for this year because that's a lot of the work we did over the last year, but also still providing them classes to help with that technology as well. And again, in all of these, I used to state this and I stopped putting it in there, but every one of these I could back up with the fact that we also invest a lot of money in our library collection to support that as well, so that you can get books and resources that also support that as well. Residents have access to the digital world with no unnecessary restrictions or fees. And so that one, I just had some analysis of some of the things that changed over the last year, where we stopped charging printing fees during the pandemic. We are back to charging. And the free Wi-Fi access is an important one because that's probably the fastest growing usage of our technology. As more and more people have devices, they don't always have connections, and we are very proud of our very fast and robust Wi-Fi access. Okay, then residents who have difficulty accessing library facilities obtain library services, and just some highlights of some of the things we were doing to support people, especially over the last year.
Could anybody give me a couple of examples of what the grab and go activities or craft kits look like?
I can. I got some for my granddaughters,
Cool.
and they were really cute. And it was putting things, it was outdoor related and there were leaves and twigs and they had things together. And so we took those and made it was fun.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and that is the report. Any other questions in general on that? Stop sharing.
Detailed information.
Yeah. Any further questions? Comments? I think we need a motion to find that we're in compliance with our results policies.
I so move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to vote no.
Okay. All right. So,
Just for my help, is that related to the bullet 3 on this, or is there something else? Just so I know where we stand. Okay.
Well, mainly bullet 3, but I've always emphasized that we need to have measures of success rather than levels of activity. And we're measuring effort rather than outcome. So wherever we have the ability to measure the result outcome, how we're achieving the result, I would like that. I know in some places it's difficult, but that's part of your job. The fun part.
Okay, and I just encourage you when we get to the discussion on the results policies, when we have a work session, that if there is something missing, that we have that discussion of, is there something that needs to be added? Because I would need more direction to make sure that I'm filling the board's needs. Thank you.
so when are we going to be having that work session, Todd? So we can kind of estimate, you know.
We need to schedule that. Normally we try to do that in November or December. I would recommend possibly early December.
Okay.
Depends on board schedules. I can have Lori send out a doodle poll.
Does that sound good?
And so what happens with that? It's a work session where we kind of go through our results policies, and the board actually prioritizes them as well, because that helps inform our budget. So thank you. I'll work on scheduling that.
Okay, that'd be great, just so that we make sure that we're all available for that, because that's an important one.
Yes.
I mean, they're all important, but okay. Library news. Todd.
I think we covered a lot of our library news, so I'll leave it at that. I just want to highlight that we do have a board work session on Tuesday, the 14th at 2 p.m. Our architects are going to be bringing some very rough conceptual designs for you to have input on. And then on September 20th at 1 o'clock, we are meeting with Brown & Brown Northwest, who is our insurance agent, going over board liability. And that will be an hour. And both of those are online.
Okay.
I may be a little late on the 14th. I have a board meeting that may run, starts at noon, may run over that.
Okay.
By the way, Todd, thank you for sending those articles to get us prepared for the architecture meeting.
Good.
Yeah, and I just watched a presentation this morning about library design and response to the pandemic, and I'll send out a link to that in case people didn't get it, because it was interesting. And then they also gave some library design examples there was a link to that as well. So I'll forward that to everybody so you
Oh,
can take a
great,
look.
thank you. That'd be good to see.
Yeah. And as far as foundation news goes, Liz stole my thunder. So what can I? We had the shortest ever final meeting to select our 3 picks to forward to Todd. So he gets to make the final choice. So we had excellent participation from the community in this. Cynthia was on the larger reading group that nominated books, and that was a very large group from around the county. And then it went down to a smaller selection committee. So we've been reading books all year for this. So we came down to 3 really good finalists. So any one of the 3 is going to be a great community read. And then the foundation, normally the foundation meets the night before this meeting, but because of the way the calendar fell, they will not be meeting until next week. So I have nothing new other than that to report from them. But yeah. And Cynthia will be taking over my spot.
I am?
I think. I'll talk to you about that later.
Okay, I didn't know anything about that.
Because the selection committee is a lot of reading, but it's really fun. It's like being in a very good book group. So
good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
I've already started reading books for next year's suggestion.
There you go.
Yeah. Some good books.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a report from Collective Impact Bend?
Actually, no updates there. They're still just kind of having meetings, just trying to figure out the format of how they're meeting. So no big update.
Okay, all right. Okay. So self-review of meeting. Bunny, do you want to start?
Sure. I thought it was a good meeting, and I just want to say I really enjoyed Liz and Tina's presentations, and just to feel that passion that they have, and to hear Liz say that she's been doing this for that long and she still loves it. That's wonderful. We're so lucky to have people like that. And I'm sorry, I will not be at the October meeting, but I'm really looking forward to seeing plans, digging in there and seeing actual plans. So that's all I have.
Okay. Cynthia?
First of all, I have to ask Bunny, where are you?
Right now, I am at the coast on this at Sutton Campground. I actually have cell phone coverage, so I created a hot spot on my phone to my laptop, and I was able to make this meeting. Otherwise, I would have to go into Florence, and I don't know how I would do that. So
I appreciate the fact
and then
that you're here.
In October, I will be in October, I will be on the Green River, and it is quite remote. So there's no way I could get in for that meeting.
Okay. Down in the canyons.
Yeah, it will be.
Well, I too appreciate what Liz had to say. And I know Liz is very passionate about what she does, having worked with her on the novel idea. So Liz is great. I really appreciate it. I appreciated what Lynn's presentation too, and Sarah's. I always appreciate what Greg has to say. There's so many moving parts to this whole construction piece, and I'm a novice. I've never done anything like this to this extent, and so I really appreciate his, as I said, his reports, but also his willingness to listen to us and answer all of our many questions. So it was a good meeting.
All right, thank you. Anne?
I too thought it was a good meeting, and I'm going to echo Bunny and Cynthia as far as saying the appreciation of our staff. Liz and Sarah did an excellent job today, just explaining their passion about programming and summer with the library. So I really appreciated that. And Greg really is able to outline what's happening. And I appreciate his ability to answer all our questions and to really make it user-friendly. As Cynthia said, you know, this is a new process for many of us. So Greg's ability to really communicate that and make it user-friendly is greatly appreciated.
All right, thank you. Ray?
Yeah, I agree with everybody. And, you know, I've been here long enough to see how our adult programming has evolved and gotten better and better every year. And Liz and Chantel, congratulations. It's a lot of work. And especially in the last 2 years, the pandemic, being able to get up and get things going. It's an incredible amount of work, not only physical, mental, emotional, but technological. I'm very impressed with him. Greg is doing a great job. I mean, looking at the way he is actually giving us more individuals to give us balance on our budget, estimations, to do everything that he's doing. He's really doing a great job as an owner's rep. I couldn't ask for anything better. Having gone through other government contract constructions, I wish I had him on some of the other ones. Excellent job. And good presentations all around. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it's easy to go last because I agree with all of you. Greg's reports really are educational, and I do appreciate he can answer any of our questions. And, you know, I've built 6 houses over my lifetime, but this process is completely different from any just personal construction experience that anybody could have. I mean, it's a very complex process, and I'm enjoying learning about it. And if our job as a board is to worry together, he takes that level of worry down a lot, just because of all the redundancies that are built into this process, and the cross-checking and the frequent data points along the way. So I really appreciate the process and the thoroughness of it. The staff's presentations were wonderful as always. And I think we're so lucky to have such creative people and dedicated people working for us, because that really does make all the difference in the services that we provide. I mean, they amaze me year after year after year. They just keep coming up with better ways to reach people. So yeah, I'm very grateful for the people that work in this district. They're just exceptional. So that's all I have. Todd?
Oh, I just echo everybody else. Great discussion, and I appreciate your engagement.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we will adjourn, and we'll get together next week on Tuesday at 2 p.m. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, definitely.
All
Good
right.
talk, Bunny.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.